Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Business, Tourism and Informatics Symposium 2021. My name is Gabriel Baji, and I'm one of the Master of Ceremonies. The other is Mr. Lion Dalek. Welcome to the distinguished guests and staff of the environment, as well as our viewers watching on Facebook on the DW Facebook page. Welcome, everyone. I will just go through the program outline. I will have the opening prayer, the national anthem, and then we will have the opening remarks by Professor Fatima. And we will go straight into our first segment, which is the tourism and hospitality sector. We will have two. So the first one is the tourism and hospitality, and then management. After that, we have tea break. Then when we come up in after tea break, we have the mathematics and technology sector, tourism and hospitality B, and training. So our presentations, and then we have closing remarks by your faculty.
Dr. Daniel. And our keynote speaker for today is Professor Maretta Colasemos, who is the Director of Quality Assurance. So, yes, our distinguished guests are the President and the Director of Quality Assurance. Okay.
Okay, once again, good morning, everyone. Before we proceed with our program, I'd like to acknowledge some of our important distinguished guests. With us here, we have the President of the Divine Word University, Father Professor Philip Gibbs. We also have the Director of Quality Assurance, Professor Maretta Semos. With us here, we also have our chaplain, Father Vincent. And thank you to our CLT team, Director CLT, Piki Airi, and your team, and Dean of our faculty, Associate Professor Dr. Martin Daniel, HODs, and colleagues. Welcome to our 2021 symposium. Our theme for this symposium is promoting a scholarly culture through research and exchange of ideas, experiences, insights for personal growth and professional development. Okay, with that, I'd like to invite Divine Word President, Father Professor Philip Gibbs, to come up and make an opening remarks for the symposium. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, including to Port Moresby. I see Port Moresby's there. I see Dr. Go there waving. That's great. It's good that we can communicate like that. And I congratulate the faculty on its use of modern technology in this sort of symposium. I also congratulate the faculty in being brave enough to have a symposium like this on the last day of the semester. It's a brave move, and I congratulate you for doing that. It means we don't have too many students available, but I see many of the staff, which is great. I'd like to just start by a quote from our charter, the DW Charter. Let the Institute provide a faculty of competent scholars and educators to direct the process of student development, a curriculum that presents the content and methods for career guidance and training, a religiously oriented and socially conscious environment as the setting for the learning experience. And I think that's very much what we're here for today, to make that a reality, the dreams that they had over 40 years ago when that charter was written. And there's two points that I'd just like to take up just very quickly from the title of your symposium today. You say that it's promoting a scholarly culture. What would we mean by a scholarly culture? Thinking of the traditional sort of scholarship, it would be someone with horn-rimmed glasses probably who spends half their time in a library reading books. And that's the way it used to be, and in some ways it still is. But today we've moved more to electronic access and to linked data. And before, where it was important, for example, to have interlibrary loans so that you could access books from all over the place, now we have our electronic databases. And I'm not sure where that database is, but somehow we can access it here in a place like Medang in Papua New Guinea. It's really just amazing the way things have developed. It also, as a scholar, it means considering different views. And to be a good scholar means considering those views critically. And that's becoming more and more important today with the misinformation, which is circulating around the world and affecting people and affecting their lives, as we know. The world of alternate facts. And it's so important to be able to develop that critical awareness, to be able to sort through all the misinformation that's circulating around. And we can see that that's becoming more and more important every day. And to me, a scholar today is a person who can access that information that's available worldwide, universally, and to be able to approach it critically, to be able to understand where the truth lies and where the misinformation lies. The second word that you've got there is a culture. What is a culture? You know, many people think of Bilas and so on, but culture is really a way of life. Culture is what has become normal to us. And it includes my values, and it includes what's important to me. So, for example, what do I do when I've got time off? When I'm waiting for a plane yesterday at the airport. There I am, I have an hour waiting for the plane. Am I going to just go and get my phone out and start thumbing through Facebook? Or am I going to read that article which I really had put aside and I really wanted to read? What am I going to choose? What's important to me? Especially when I have a moment free, when I'm not at a meeting that I have to be at, when I have a choice of what I'm going to do. What does a scholar do? Does a scholar, what source does it go to? I'm not putting down Facebook, it's very important. But maybe for the scholar, there are other things that also are very, very important. And I just give that example. Another example for you, I have an MBA degree. Now, what does that mean? It's from Divine Word University. I'm a graduate of Divine Word University. I'm one of the alumni. Now, what does that mean? Yeah. Because to me, a degree is not so much what I have, but it is who I am. And in what way has that MBA changed me? And that's what we're getting at, I think, in the last words of the theme that we have today. It says it's insights for personal growth and professional development. And I was very interested to pick that up, that you people put that in, that this scholarly culture is to provide insights for personal growth and professional development. So it's not what degree you have. It doesn't matter how many doctorates you have. What really matters is who you are, who you have become, and not only who you have become, but what you can share in our global world today, and especially here in a place like Papua New Guinea. So it has a lot to do with how we can contribute to the development of our nation, Papua New Guinea, as scholars. And so I think that's, to me, what this is all about today. Business, Tourism and Informatics Symposium, promoting the scholarly culture through research, exchange of ideas, experiences, and insights for personal growth and professional development. Wonderful theme. I wish you well for that today. I'm sorry I won't be able to stay with you all day. I've got meetings lined up all day, but I'm really happy. Thank you for inviting me here, and I hope to be able to call in a little bit later in the day to be able to hear what's being said. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Professor Father Philip Gibbs, for that speech. Now, before I call upon the first sector, at the end of each sector, there will be question and answer time. So that's for you, the audience, if you would like to ask any of the presenters of that sector a question. So depending on the number of presenters, we have about 5 to 10 minutes of question and answer time. All right. Without further ado, I may call upon the first sector, the Tourism and Hospitality A. Please make your way up on the stage, the presenters. We have Dr. Fiona Andra, Ms. Helen Gimbo, and Ms. Vanessa Uiari from the Tourism and Hospitality Department. Okay. Starting off the sector, we have presenting on collaborative and inclusive leadership at the local level, a woman's role in PNG's rural tourism. Please make welcome Dr. Fiona Andra.
Thank you, Gabriel. Good morning, everyone. So this is actually part of my PhD study that I have come up with this presentation. So just a brief outline, study background, findings, and then down to conclusion. So what forms the literature review is feminism in tourism. And the first theme is gender role in tourism. And that includes division of labor, who does what in a society with regards to tourism, and the changing role of gender in the tourism industry. So with the literature, it says that tourism does empower women. However, there's a catch to it. In order for that to be effective, there has to be policies to implement that. Further on, women and tourism in PNG, bringing it home to PNG. What is the role of women in PNG? So my presentation is basically on rural tourism, and that's tourism in the rural areas. Literature says that women in PNG are engaging in local micro businesses, meaning that not the big ones, not the SME rather, but right down at the grassroots level. And that is the village setting. So study background, where the data was collected. Data was collected from 4 provinces, and that includes 8 different communities. The provinces are Medang, Jiwaka, Chimbu, and Eastern Highlands. Methodology used was focus group and storytelling. Storytelling in the sense that you allow them to talk, and storytelling was used because it was in the rural setting. And as Papua New Guineans, we like to tell stories. Hence, that technique was used in this particular research. So moving on to my data. In particular, female participation. You will see that leadership by gender, it's male-dominated. And you will notice that in every community, women did participate or are participating in tourism. How are they participating in tourism? The findings, women are participating in tourism by providing hospitality, doing the arts and craft, selling food, maintaining customer service, cleanliness around the community tourism sites. So women are actually doing the hands-on job, if you like, the nuts and bolts of tourism. However, when it comes to decision-making, women play the secondary role. It is dominated by men. So indeed, there is a lack of collaborative decision-making at the local level. Why is this happening? This is happening because our society is patrilineal, most of it. So that defines our society where men culturally are the leaders. And as a society, we become complacent with that. But the world is changing. We have to move out from that comfort zone, because women are actually taking part now, are actually having a say or want to have a say. So how do we improve? Improve the complementary role women already play alongside men, and that is their male counterparts. We may use adaptive co-management, meaning that what we have, whatever system we have in place, we may need to change it to suit what is current, the modern times. NGO funding bodies, if they are to help or assist, the criteria must say that women must be involved before they can render any services or assistance to communities participating in tourism. So again, I'd like to stress that women indeed have a place in tourism in our society. Therefore, they should be given the opportunity to also make decisions, whether it's at the national, provincial, or local level. This brings me to the end of my presentation. So it is my honor to introduce the next speaker, also from tourism, Ms. Helen Gimble, and her presentation title is Exploring the Challenges of Small-Scale Urban Tourism Entrepreneurs in Medang Province.
Thank you, Dr. Androa. Good morning, colleagues and viewers online. My presentation is titled Exploring the Challenges of Small-Scale Women Tourism Entrepreneurs in the Urban Medang District of Papua New Guinea. On to the presentation, a brief outline. I'll start with the research background, and my slides will finish with the references. In terms of the research background, the study focused on small-scale women tourism operators in the Urban Medang District of the Medang Province in Papua New Guinea. This study was actually conducted as part of my master's program in International Sustainable Tourism Management at Monash University. It was my thesis paper, so it's based on that. I had 3 research questions. Okay. Prior to that, literature review was done, and 3 research questions were developed, okay, which led to the research objectives, which you can see on your right. Firstly, to understand how local women tourism operators in the urban Medang district in PNG are impacted by the engagement in small-scale tourism entrepreneurship. Secondly, to identify the barriers or challenges faced by local women tourism operators in the success of their small-scale tourism operations. And thirdly, to suggest possible strategies to be explored by the government in overcoming the challenges to successful women's tourism entrepreneurship in Medang. The overall aim was to explore the challenges of small-scale women tourism operators in the urban Medang district of Papua New Guinea. And participants were elicited from the Cranket Fish Market, the Medang Town Market, a few guest houses in Medang, and 1 hire car operations setup in Medang. This is a brief overview of the literature, of some of the literature that was covered on the impacts of tourism entrepreneurship on women. It was found that women contribute financially to their families and communities. And another study found that women benefit economically, psychologically, socially, and politically through tourism entrepreneurship. In terms of the challenges faced by women tourism entrepreneurs, studies have found that the lack of startup capital, low levels of education, centralized control system of protected tourism sites, and low potential earnings are some of the challenges that women face. And in terms of the strategies to overcoming this, there was an article that talked about how to, including women's participation in a tourism policy, planning and policy initiative, allowed women opportunities to become leaders and entrepreneurs in their community. The methodology that was used for this research, qualitative, I used the case study approach, the population and sampling techniques were snowballing and pepper sieve techniques. There were 17 small-scale women tourism operators and 2 representatives from the tourism governing sector that included TPA, or the Tourism Promotion Authority, and the Medang Provincial Government Tourism Office. Semi-structured interviews were conducted, and the thematic analysis approach was used to analyze data for the study. On to my main findings. With the first objective, to understand how local women tourism operators are impacted, the study identified 3 main areas, or several main areas. Firstly, economic aspects, and 2 main ones were enabling income for daily family needs and other needs. And whilst that revealed a number of areas which benefited the women, one participant also suggested that income generation is irregular in tourism entrepreneurship. That is one of the challenges. And on your right here of below is an insight by participant 14. Another classification of challenges, impacts, was social impacts, and 2 or 3 main ones were identified. The majority of the participants indicated that tourism entrepreneurship enhanced networking opportunities and enhanced participation in family and community obligations. Okay. And on the flip side, limited social time with family and friends, okay, because of their involvement with the entrepreneurship and operations of their businesses. They had little time or minimal time to spend with their loved ones and friends. Apart from that, personal impacts, the main ones that were identified: more free time, improved self-confidence, the ambition to do more. They did more physical exercise because they had to walk distances to bring their products. Other than that, or as a negative impact, health issues were identified because tourism entrepreneurship can be labor intensive. The second objective, to identify the barriers or challenges faced by local women tourism entrepreneurs. The challenges were found to be economic, social, cultural, and political in nature. And some of the themes that were identified are low capital, low business periods, lack of startup capital, competition from shops, particularly Asian shops. These are some of their challenges, daily market entry fee requirements or trickiness at the main market. For somebody who has not sold anything at all at the main market, trickiness can be a lot on a daily basis. The inaccessible regulations of financial institutions such as NDB, there are some rules and regulations or requirements that some of the participants found that make the funding opportunities inaccessible. Okay, and that is also because of the literacy rate or level of some of the participants. Okay, law and order issues, and down to political aspects, the lack of government support in funding initiatives for SMEs, lack of limited public infrastructure. The images here show just an insight of some of the challenges that our local women entrepreneurs face at the main market. The image on your right shows a section of the market on a fine day, and on the left, a section of the market on a rainy day. This is just an example, an insight into some of the challenges that our local women entrepreneurs face. So as you can see, the sellers are cramped up in this market area. They need more infrastructure to be built or established. The findings for the third outcome, objective, to suggest possible strategies to be explored by the government in overcoming the challenges to successful women's tourism entrepreneurship in Medang. The government needs to address local law and order issues, assist women with project funding or support initiatives, and establish suitable infrastructure to ease the facilitation of their enterprises. Okay. Interviews with the tourism governing bodies indicate or show also that women's participation in tourism need to be encouraged and established and shown also in tourism policy plans. The discussion of this study in brief, the findings reveal that the effects of tourism entrepreneurship engagement on women are mostly economic, social, or economical, social, personal, and cultural in nature. The barriers to their success in tourism entrepreneurship were found to be financially, socially, and culturally, and politically oriented. And findings suggest that the government needs to address local law and order issues, assist women with project funding or support initiatives, and establish suitable infrastructure to ease the facilitation of their enterprises. Okay. The results could be useful for the government and tourism policymakers to make informed decisions on the development of local tourism SMEs in Medang, particularly those owned and operated by women. Thank you, and that concludes my presentation. Before I take my seat, I would like to introduce Ms. Vanessa Weyari. She will talk to us about the 2018 APEC Summit and National Pride, an emerging finding using in-depth interviews.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gamble. Good morning, colleagues. My presentation today is called 2018 APEC Summit and National Pride, an emerging finding and using in-depth interviews. This presentation is based on emerging findings from ongoing data analysis and is part of a paper that my colleague and I are currently writing. That's Ms. Murky. I hope you have had an opportunity to read the abstract. I have 10 minutes to present. The purpose of the paper is twofold. Firstly, it is to discuss the use of the in-depth interview in social research. The second purpose is to present briefly one emerging finding from a team research project. The team behind the project include Ms. Gimbo, Ms. Cow, Ms. Morkey, and myself. What is presented here reflects a team approach in research. Oops, I forgot to show you the purpose. I open this presentation with two statements made by participants, which give you a sense of what is the in-depth interview. Please read in silence. To the next statement, which gives you another sense of the in-depth interview. I hope both statements give you an idea that the data collected in in-depth interviews is rich and contain honest and intelligent stories that help researchers theorize about social life. The in-depth interview is used to understand how participants in bounded groups understand a particular social phenomenon. Regarding the first point on the slide, the participant's reality is honored. What is going on outside, that is the context, and what is going on inside, that is the way participants understand, is captured. This data helps researchers get closer to participants' lived experiences. In interpretivist traditions, in-depth interviews are used to live in the world of our participants as it is captured in the text. Researchers transcribe, reading and rereading and making memos to make sense of the data, trying to capture the ways participants make sense of their world. Regarding the second point on the slide, this access to the participants' reality is helped by capturing in vivo language. That is language that is distinct to a certain population and context, or language directly from the field. This is important because language shapes meaning. Regarding the third point in the slide, rapport involves the interviewee feeling comfortable and competent to talk and provide insights based on already established cultural standards. Researchers rapidly develop a positive relationship with the participant, and trust and rapport are cardinal. To the last point, key informants are individuals who possess special knowledge, status, or communication skills, and who are willing to share the knowledge and skills, with researchers. A common selection criteria for key informants include their access to observations in time, space, and perceptions which we researchers are denied. Key informants are selected for their knowledge and role. Finding good key informants usually requires a long-term relationship. They possess key information. They are experienced and savvy in the scene under study. A note on recruiting participants. Network sampling, which is a form of purposeful sampling, was used to recruit participants. Normally in network sampling, it is participants who are asked to list everyone in their network who can provide more information about the social phenomenon under study. But in our project, we use network sampling in a different way. Regarding the first point in the slide, each member of the team reflected on our own networks, which span decades of experience. We selected participants from our networks. Regarding the second point on the slide, participants were also recruited naturalistically during observations. Lastly, as shown on the slide, we use snowballing, whereby participants are asked for referrals to other experts. So formal primary data collection was conducted for 10 days, almost immediately after the leaders' meeting in the 2018 APEC Summit. On the first day, as soon as the team landed in Port Moresby, the first interview was conducted. And on the last day, 5 interviews were conducted. Other data included observations, which were recorded in field notes, and photographs and artifacts like reports and other documentary evidence. The purpose of using more than one method is to complete and confirm data collected via in-depth interviews. Regarding the second point in the slide, as much as possible, we conducted the interviews in pairs. And regarding the third point, each interview was 60 minutes to 120 minutes long. The process of obtaining informed consent generally took at least 35 minutes of that time. And the project was explained in Tok Pisin and English as necessary. Participants were invited to ask questions before they were then asked to sign the informed consent forms. And lastly, in-depth interviews form the main corpus of primary data. Transcription is ongoing. Over 21 transcriptions are complete. The core data transcribed so far comprises 176,000 plus words. So data analysis is ongoing, and the following is a snapshot which explains the ongoing coding process. This slide is a graphic representation of the depth of the data using a few participants. Importantly, it displays what the data looks like with the first cycle of coding called structural coding. Structural coding is being applied to the data. This provides a structure for understanding the immense amount of data. The coding is used to answer one of the project objectives, which was to understand how different interest groups comprising tourism's wider society in PNG attach meaning to the 2018 APEC Summit. Therefore, this required structuring the data according to different interest groups. Participants can be clustered into interest groups, and the codes for these interest groups comes from the in vivo language itself, the words and phrases that participants use to say who they were, where they are from. Participants are clustered also based on socio-demographic codes, but it is important also, because this was a bigger event, to map the places of residence of participants and also to map how participants identified themselves as being of a place in PNG, like being from a village or being from a district. It was on the basis of structural coding that the four of us in the team decided to write papers from the diverse perspectives of different interest groups. This next slide shows a graphic representation in a snapshot of ongoing coding, which is being conducted to answer another important project objective, which was to identify the starting points of non-utilitarian flows of benefits from the 2018 APEC Summit, including the long-term and permanent legacies and the regeneration of national pride. The first step was to chunk out relevant data, an example of which you can see in the first line in the diagram, or the top line. What males said is represented in yellow, and what females stated is in the lighter color. In vivo codes were elicited from this process of data reduction. So hopefully you get an idea of how data is being analyzed. And I have to scoot to the finding. An important emerging finding is the expression of national identity by participants. This nationalistic attitude that grew out of APEC is grounded in the pride that participants expressed in being from a place, yet transcending the rural and urban divide in order to live and work in Moresby. Okay, we will attend, that is Ms. Murki and I will attend to this finding of national pride when we write our final paper. And this paper will be informed by some of these theories or some of these concepts that are displayed on the screen. And also how mega events are framed by Garofalo and Death here. And I thank you for your time. I acknowledge Ms. Kimball, Ms. Kao, Ms. Murki. I also acknowledge the Faculty of Business Informatics at Divine Word University.
All right, thank you to the Tourism and Hospitality Sector A. Now we will go into about, let's say, 10 minutes of question and answer time. So if the audience has any questions for the presenters up here, now is the time to ask. Okay, Professor Maretta has a question.
I have a comment.
Okay.
My comment is to the last presentation by Vanessa. Vanessa, that presentation is just for the speech that I will be giving. And I was really thrilled to hear you talk about the interview because you contextualized it and you come up with your own concepts about methodology. And for me, that is really powerful. I hope to see you extend it further because this year will be presented in a reference journalist way. So I'd like that that was a really high quality presentation. Thank you. My question is to Dr. Goldberg, and it's about feminism. I was wondering how you are using the concept and technology of feminism. I wanted a definition of it. Because you use feminism to think about women.
Feminism speaks to one clear relationship, not just gender. When I say gender, I'm meaning like the physical that differentiates men and women. But this was more to do with power, relationship, culture, what women experience same feelings. That's how I would hear it.
I was thinking about feminism more in a theoretical perspective, that feminism is very much a Western construct, and it originated from French when women were all up and shouting about equal opportunities, equal participation, that sort of thing. And we talk about women disempowered that they participate in the tourism industry, but they don't make decisions. They are disempowered in that sense. So I was trying to see the link between that and feminism as a movement, and that's why I asked. But this thing, that was a good presentation. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments from members of the audience? All right, if there are none, then we will move on with the program. Thank you to the Tourism and Hospitality Sector A.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now we'll go to business and management sector. In this sector, we have two presenters. One will be presenting from here, Divine Wood University, and the other one will be from POM campus. And so on that note, I would like to thank and acknowledge one of our colleagues from POM campus, Mr. Wilson Go. And still on that note, we'll have one more presenter via Zoom, and our former colleague, Ms. Alcinda Trowell. Okay, the president, vice president research, and vice president academic, Professor Ivona and Professor Josh Curran, they will join us at their convenience via Zoom as well. Okay, with that, I'll call upon the business sector team. And from here, we have Mr. Roy Bawalua. He'll be presenting on leadership, boss na leader. ay Papua New Guinea perspective.
Good morning, because you've been saying good morning all this morning. I'm going straight into my topic on can we get that top of the screen? See the topic. Okay, go back to the next one. Okay. Okay. The topic is not too clear from the top, but as you can see from the program, my topic was on leadership, leadership related to leader and boss, and looking at it in PNG perspective. This is my background of my desk research. Okay, looking at the global context in 3 different areas in particular: management functions, management skills, and management emotional intelligence. And then drawing from my discussion would be on some of the challenges in leadership in PNG. Why are there so many failed businesses and organizations in PNG? Among many other factors, could it be the kind of management, boss, or leadership in these organizations as one of many reasons for their downfall? Let's look at a leader versus a boss. Someone said this: it drives me up a wall when people use the word boss interchangeably with leadership. That two are entirely different. Okay, so you're trying to compare 2 different things altogether. From the description, you can see the some of the qualities of a leader as compared to a boss. A boss has no interest in people development, okay, whereas a leader is interested in helping them grow and develop. A boss takes the credit. A leader gives credit where it's due. The boss says go. The leader says let's go. A boss drives others. A leader coaches them toward their best performance. And you can go down the list. I'm not reading all of them. The bottom line is, one is a people-oriented leader. The other one is task-oriented boss. Okay, so you can be one, or I can be one or the other. What about a manager? We sometimes use those terms interchangeably. Leader, boss, manager. Okay, someone said this: a leader or leader and manager are synonymous terms, right? Well, it's an incorrect statement because they're not the same. A leader is one who influences the behavior and work of others in group efforts toward achieving a specified goals in a given situation. On the other hand, manager can be a true manager only if he has got traits of a leader in him. Okay, manager at all levels are expected to be leaders of work groups so that subordinates willingly carry instructions and accept their guidance. So a person, okay, anyone can be a leader by virtue of all the qualities in him. Okay, and we'll look at some of this. First of all, a virtue of his position, a manager has to fulfill some of these main management functions. And I'll quickly go through them. Planning, that is setting the goals for the organization as a whole, or the unit, or the department, or the division within the organization. But they must have some goals, whichever section you are in, okay, and looking for ways to achieve those goals. Finding the best strategy, tactics to achieve those goals. That's part of planning, organizing, getting all the resources together, both human resources and non-human resources, to fulfill the task that is needed to achieve those goals. leading is one of the very important aspects of a leader. To lead is to motivate, to inspire, to develop, to empower those below you, part of the leading aspect of a leader. Controlling. When you look at the term controlling, it's not basically controlling, your human resources, controlling in the aspect of setting mechanisms in place so that you can easily detect if there are deviations, in the operations that needed to be guided in order to achieve the organization goals or your division goals, department goals, whatever those sections you are leading. So controlling is the best, or one of the best aspects of the leading functions of a manager or a good leader. Okay. Without those control mechanisms, you are unable to detect any deviations, and it can be fatal to your organization. We look at management skills. These are some specific abilities in specific areas. These skills can be categorized into conceptual skills, sometimes referred to as cognitive skills. Okay, being able to think outside the box, being able to see the larger picture. Okay, if there's something, if there are reports coming out, and the leader must be able to picture the impact of what those means to the organization. Okay, so to look at the bigger, a broader picture of the operations. This is conceptual skills. Technical skills, of course, okay, being technical in your field of expertise, okay, especially in manufacturing, for instance. Okay, a good leader must have some technical skills in diagnosing problems, okay, troubleshooting any problem areas in, say, production, finance, operations, okay. Human skills, one of the very important. Do whatever you want with other resources, non-human resources, but with human, okay, that's different. They have taste preferences and, feelings. And to deal with human, it needs skills, okay. Time management skills, okay. Decision-making skills. It's not that easy to make decisions. Some managers, leaders, and especially bosses make unilateral decisions, okay. Skills in that, okay. Being able to determine what the problem is, okay, and gathering alternate solutions, okay, in order to alleviate, minimize the problem, reduce the impact of whatever the problem is, selecting the best option, okay, in decision making. And the best way is group decision making, because you get more input from your think tank within the organization instead of you doing it on your own. One other thing that I found out, don't be afraid to be a devil advocate. Okay. Be a devil advocate. The name devil may give you the wrong connotation in your mind, but being able to ask questions, being able to give alternatives, being able to challenge the option that others have come up with. This is not to downgrade other people's point. By the way, the information is do not inhibit people talking and giving, even if their input is useless to you. Okay, don't just tell them to stop, because some part of his input may be emotional intelligence, the ability to perceive, understand, manage, and handle emotions. Okay, you able to do that? Okay, if you are able to do that, within yourself, you can be able to do that with others. The first important dimension of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. Understand your own emotional intelligence. If you don't understand your emotional intelligence, your emotional whatever in you, you will not be able to manage or lead others. Okay, that's the important point. Self-management, aware of your emotional status, as well as managing it correctly. Fear, anger, those kind of emotions, how do you put them down? Okay, social awareness, relationship, skill shortages, and we'll finish time off now. From the report now, these are challenges in Papua New Guinea leadership. Apart from political uncertainty, law, and all those other issues, the notable skilled labor shortages in Papua New Guinea. Would you believe that? Skill shortages, this is from ADB in collaboration with NDP, okay, came up with this, the single, what did they say? It was highlighted in their report in 2020. Beside economic situation in the country, skill shortages are the single biggest factor impedes hiring. In fact, I did not show it there, 80% of the respondents that come, and that's throughout Papua New Guinea. Okay. Lack of good practices. This is from a government statutory body with 5 or 6 other organizations under its jurisdiction. The CEO said this: we observed and experienced a lack of good regulatory practice when it comes to regulators of these organizations. Who are the regulators? CEO. Okay, my conclusion, it is obvious, therefore, as reflected from this report, that due to poor leadership or lack of leadership skills and styles of leadership in Papua New Guinea have caused many organizations to struggle economically and profitably viable. Many non-profit organizations are struggling to meet their entities' goals. Organizations are riddled with malpractices and corruption of all sorts and negatively impacting the whole country. Take-home point, the key to successful leadership is influence, not authority. Thank you all. I almost forgot my next obligation to do. That is to introduce our next speaker. Understand it's Dr. Wilson Gore. Mr. Wilson Gore, sorry. Mr. Wilson Gore will be coming on screen for us in his presentation, and his presentation will be on economic tripartite partnership, smallholder empowerment in Papua New Guinea. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Wilson Gore.
Mr. Gore, are you with us? Okay. I think we'll just go to questions and comments. Let's just give a round of applause for the business sector, Mr. Barwa and Mr. Gore. Okay, thank you. Do you have any comments or questions? And I think we're running out of time, so we'll just proceed to our next segment. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning, our symposium. Our keynote speaker will be is Professor Marita Samos, Director for Quality Assurance, Divine Word University. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Professor Samos. Thank you.
Do you need the screen or not? Do you need the screen to be on?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe I'll take Roy's line and not say good morning. I had on my speech, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, but I won't say it. I'll follow what Roy just said. We've been saying good morning. I wanted to acknowledge the president. He's not here, but I'll say it anyway. Professor Philip Gibbs, the president of Divine Word University,
Ms. Alcinda Trawen, the Deputy Manager, Research and International Relations, World Tourism Organization at the Regional Support Office for Asia and Pacific in Japan, who I hope has joined us virtually. Associate Professor Martin Daniel, Dean of the Faculty of Business and Informatics, Head of FBI Departments, Mr. Kosley Wara, Ms. Trisa Kau, Mr. Otto Keru, Ms. Marian Bagore, and Mr. Cyril Sassoruo. I also would like to acknowledge Mr. Wilson Go, our presenter from POM campus, staff presenters of this symposium, other FBI staff, and members of the Divine Word University community. It is indeed my pleasure and privilege to be standing here. I'm taking it that this is your second symposium. I didn't ask. Third, all right. Your third annual Business, Tourism, and Informatics Symposium to deliver this keynote address. Thank you to the Symposium Organizing Committee and the Dean for entrusting me with such a responsibility. And I hope that I will be able to address what you asked me to. The theme for this year's symposium is promoting a scholarly culture through research and exchange of ideas, experiences, and insights for personal growth and professional development. If we're going to be promoting a scholarly culture, research culture, through exchange of ideas and experiences, and as a community of scholars and researchers, drawing from each other's insights and personal and professional growth, then we should start by exploring what each one of us individually, at our individual level, has to offer to our departments, the faculty, and a large scale to Divine Word University, our organization. Scientifically speaking, exchanging or sharing of knowledge is an outcome of engaging in research. And research, simply put, is an investigation of a problem in a scientific manner. It is a systematic process of collecting and analyzing information, which is data, in order to increase our understanding of the phenomenon in which we are concerned or interested. So what do? We plan, we collect, we analyze, and we discuss in brackets. Why? Because that bit of we discuss in brackets comes later when I discuss the scholarship aspect. But when we think about research, we only think about those three initial stages of planning, collecting, and analyzing, which you will find in most of the literature. So if we think about the process in those three major steps, we have completed the research cycle. So in keeping with the symposium theme, I begin by discussing the scholarship of teaching and learning before I focus on research per se to make the connections, and you will see why. So my first point that I would like to share with you is the scholarship of teaching, SOT. A scholarly approach to teaching is an intellectual undertaking to bring about documented improvements in student learning. It would involve reading about new teaching methodologies, and that's why I was excited about Vanessa's presentation, reflecting on teaching practices, attending workshops to up with the latest knowledge and pedagogy, and this is what our CLT does very well in promoting, and asking for peer feedback. So I'm hoping that peer feedback takes place at departmental level, because you would do team teaching and you ask your peer, how did I go? What did you think? Or the head of department or the dean would probably come into your class and sit and observe, and you exchange ideas and discuss this, peer teaching feedback. So I'm assuming we do that. If we're not, maybe we need to update this now. So the focus of scholarship of teaching is based on the outcomes of student learning as a consequence of your teaching. What you put in and how much you put in is reflected in student learning that is demonstrated. So that's the scholarship of teaching. I'll move on to the scholarship of teaching and learning, which we refer to as SOTL, which is different from the scholarship of teaching. The scholarship of teaching learning involves a systematic engagement and analysis of research questions, and I emphasize research questions that are related to student learning that are shared publicly in peer-reviewed journals in order to advance the field of teaching and learning. Examples would include conducting research projects on pedagogy. Vanessa just gave a very good presentation, an example of a research that would promote the scholarship of teaching and learning. Content knowledge in subject disciplines. Collaborative research projects with focus on the use of technology. Online learning, only to name a few. Any student involvement as participants in your staff research projects would require ethical consideration, and that is to protect the identity of our students. Any joint research projects with students must undergo ethical consideration by way of seeking the student consent to determine how much of the student's intellectual property went into it that is involved, and how much of the work is the staff members' input. So scholarship of teaching and learning involves a shift in how one thinks about his or her teaching, measuring our students' learning, and by responding to student online unit evaluation feedback that the Quality Assurance Division gives out to you. So we don't just do these online unit evaluations for nothing. It is to promote the scholarship of teaching and learning. And so I congratulate your dean for trying to complete the cycle and putting you all on the spot to say, how have you addressed the feedback? Why you will be promoting the scholarship of teaching and learning. So thank you, Dean. So in the scholarship of teaching and learning, all practices are based on evidence-based research. You can see now why I keep repeating complete the cycle. So online unit evaluations are integral to promoting SOTL. The idea is to grow and develop knowledge about your own teaching, which in turn has a significant impact on the institution and your disciplinary field. So your research projects that you conduct or that you are presenting today should be seen to enhance and advance your own teaching practices as well as your content or subject discipline. This then contributes to the university, which is Divine Word University's overarching objectives of the top tier teaching and learning plan and your own faculty operational plans. So if we get this right, we would be simultaneously advancing the third decade strategic objectives. Number 1, student transformation. Number 2, innovation in learning and teaching. And number 3, intensive research and knowledge exchange. All three are interdependent and they flow seamlessly into each other's spaces to strengthen the vision of Divine Word University, but more importantly, to promote academic and scholarly culture at Divine Word University. It is therefore timely that your symposium should deliberately aspire to promoting a scholarly research culture. So I now turn to scholarly research, having talked about teaching and learning. What is scholarly research? Well, books, publications, academic journal articles, both print-based as well as electronic, which are commonly types of scholarly materials. And they should feature the following characteristics. The authors are scholars or researchers with known affiliations, educational and research credentials as well that they have. The authors cite other sources, whether they're primary or secondary, and so citation features largely. Many scholarly publications include citations to other references or sources, references, and bibliographies. The language that is used is academic and complex. It may be disciplinary, it may be theoretical. The publisher is a scholarly press that practices editorial review to ensure that the content and the context adhere to the expected research parameters or boundaries. And the intended audience is composed of researchers, scholars, and academics, or other specialized readership. So scholarly or academic journals are periodic publications. They happen annually or quarterly, and I believe your journal is an annual one, the FBI one. They undergo an editorial process that is peer-reviewed or refereed. And normally the articles are longer, essay length, and would involve an abstract. An abstract is a must. The descriptions just described above would hold true for the sciences that can be found in some of your disciplines in FBI, MCS, IS, business accountancy, and even in FMHS with the MBBS, health sciences, and rehabilitation sciences. For some disciplines, different rules would apply. Scholarly articles in the arts, theater, architecture, and related fields would involve images as well. There may be fewer citations to other sources and reference listings. The bibliography may be shorter, and the author may be a creative practitioner, like a playwright or maybe an architect. The author could even be a multidisciplinary and intellectual who does not have to rely on those acceptable scholarly devices. So we see at Divine Word University, every time we're talking research, we want everybody to comply. We want everybody to fit this one-size-fits-all model when we know that the disciplines all vary and they are different. So it is time to take note of the diversity in the disciplines, and we go by what they have to offer. And I hope that you are promoting it. So what is non-scholarly? Well, news sources, newspapers, materials that are time-based. And when we say it's time-based, it's outdated and in need of being updated. Sources that are primarily journalistic, sources written for a broad readership, sources that are advocacy or opinion-based, sources that lack references to other sources, data or statistical publications or compilations, primary sources, trade and professional sources, book reviews, movies, plays, gallery art shows, etc. Why have I spent the time and trouble outlining all this? I will come back to make the connections towards the end of my speech when I turn to the topics that have already been covered and those yet to come. But now I'd like to move on to higher degrees by research, because I also would like to touch the scholarship aspect in higher degrees by research, or HDR. At Divine Word University, we say research by higher degrees, RHD. Higher degrees by research has twofold focus. The first is the scholarship focus, and the second is the research focus. And I'll go through very quickly. The scholarship focus involves building upon existing knowledge or adding a new dimension to knowledge. It involves creating new knowledge in the field of study. It involves opening up the field for future or further research. It involves adding teaching and learning through the scholarship of teaching and learning. And this is the nexus between teaching and learning and research. This is where it comes in. It involves improving learning styles. It involves building academic culture and engaging in publication. That is the scholarship of research higher degrees. What about the research aspect, the second component? Well, the research focus is to provide the data or evidence to support the scholarship aspect. It is not to solve or find solutions to a problem, but to understand a phenomenon. So we do research to understand a phenomenon, unless you are engaging in social applied research or policy research to solve a problem. So don't come here and stand up thinking you're going to be solving a problem. Come here and give us a different perspective to the problem. Coming back now. Research higher degree students who focus heavily on the research and data collected and the analysis tend to completely miss the scholarship aspect of research higher degrees and become dispirited, especially given the long and stressful journey of undertaking research higher degree studies. For those of you who have undergone the journey, you will agree with me. You eat, you sleep, you walk, you wake up thinking about the thesis. It consumes you. And it is no wonder there is a running joke that PhD stands for permanent head damage. So let's come back. Supervisors therefore occupy an advisory role to guide and mentor RHD students not to lose sight of the scholarship aspect, so that the research that they conduct provides the data as evidence to help build the scholarship aspect. Let me pause for a while and allow you to ponder over the key concepts that I have just presented. Firstly, the scholarship of teaching. It is an intellectual undertaking by an academic to bring about documented improvement in student learning. Who benefits? The academic and the student. The scholarship of teaching and learning. It is a systematic engagement and analysis of research questions that are related to student learning that are shared publicly in peer-reviewed journals to advance the field of teaching and learning. An academic can do this individually or collaboratively with colleagues, internally and externally. Who benefits? The university, the faculty, based on your subject discipline, and the academic. Scholarly research. Following on from the scholarship of teaching and learning, scholarly research involves print-based and electronic publication of books, conference papers, and academic journal articles. Papers are published in peer-reviewed journals and must refer to citations from other sources. Who benefits? Scholars and researchers, and academics can be both. Higher degrees by research has a twofold focus, scholarship and research. Scholarship involves adding new knowledge to the field or enhancing existing knowledge by presenting a different perspective. Research is the process involved in providing the evidence or data to substantiate that new knowledge being added and to extend or further the existing knowledge, that indeed scholarship is involved. Turning to the topics that you have covered and you will cover in this symposium, so that you can reflect on each of them and ask where in the above scholarship areas your research project features. It may be that your project cuts across more than one of the above. So I commend you and congratulate you for the diversity of topics throughout the day. They include 1, a range of tourism and hospitality topics with focus on women, beginning with what Dr. Drower has presented to us on the collaborative and leadership roles women play in rural tourism in PNG. And by Ms. Gimbo, the challenges that they face in small-scale tourism entrepreneurs in urban Medang. We got to hear about the emerging in-depth inter-findings on the 2018 APIC Summit and National Pride by our colleagues in THM. Wonderful insight there. Remaining with the field of tourism and hospitality, we will also have presentations in the context of COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the industry. For the latter, our external presenter, Ms. Trawen, will provide insights to the Papua New Guinea tourism crisis management, and Ms. Drower, her observer insights to reviving of the industry in the new normal through staycations. Complementing THM and keeping with COVID-19, we will learn from our mathematicians their prediction of the spread of COVID-19 in PNG using SIR model, incorporating quarantine and testing. I was wondering what this SIR was, so I'm going to be listening very carefully, Cyril. For business and management, a PNG perspective was presented on leadership, boss and leader. Roy, you clearly differentiated between what is a boss and leader. So you need to tell everybody here when they start saying boss Mary and boss man. And small-scale empowerment in Papua New Guinea through the lens of a tripartite economic partnership. What a very good topic, and unfortunately, we couldn't see the complete presentation by Mr. Go. From our mathematicians and technology experts, an assessment of the Human Development Index, a PNG optimization model is presented, followed by 2 healthcare topics, one using big data to improve health service delivery in PNG, and the other, factors influencing the adoption of wearable devices in healthcare in developing countries. I'm curious as to what these wearable devices are. Finally, but not the least, 3 topics have been designated to teaching and learning. Adventure travel and its impact on teaching and learning in the Department of Tourism and Hospitality Management, challenges in teaching a large class and its benefits in the Department of Business Studies, and online unit delivery of flexible learning programs in the Faculty of Business and Informatics. So colleagues, as you listen to the research presentations, reflect upon what I have highlighted and see where each of your paper presentations fit in. For instance, is the presentation on the challenges of teaching a large class and its benefits in the Department of Business Study a research project that could be expanded to promote the scholarship of teaching and learning? And if so, what are the next steps? The presentation by Ms. Uyari on the in-depth interview. In-depth interview is a method, it's a qualitative method, but the way it has been picked up and presented has now shifted. It's no longer presented as a method, but it was presented as a methodology. And I found it very interesting. So how can you develop that as a methodology for a peer-reviewed journal? Have a think. Before I take my seat, let me congratulate in advance the Dean and the faculty for successful launching of your volume 4 of the Journal of Informatics towards the end of the day. You definitely have come a long way and deserve to be commended for a job well done. With that, I wish you all a very fruitful day of scholarship, scholarly knowledge, exchange, and sharing. Uro menengan, tanikiu kamu kamu, esay mok. Thank you, True.
Let's give another round of applause to Professor Maretta Kolasemos for the keynote address. All right, we have reached the end of our first session. After tea, we'll come in for the second session that will stretch until hopefully 1 p.m. Okay, so tea will be provided at under the Picus tree. So if you're making your way out, you can grab a cup of tea at the Picus tree. For our viewers watching live on Facebook, we will be back at 10:45. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. To our viewers on Facebook, welcome back as well. We will begin with the second session of presentations. We will have about 3 sectors in this second half of the symposium. So starting off our second session, we will have the mathematics and technology sector. So may I ask the presenters in that sector to please make their way up on the stage. In this sector, we have Mrs. Sasaro, the HOD for Mathematics and Computing Science, Mr. Sasaro, the HOD for Information Systems, Ms. Bagore, and MCS Mathematics and Computing Science tutor, Mr. Rodney Gunik. So presenting first in the Mathematics and Technology sector, on Human Development Index, PNG Progression Optimization Model, Mrs. Ranu Sasoro.
Welcome. This is my presentation. This topic was presented by a final Mathematics and Computing Science undergraduate student. She did that as a final research project. And because I spent so much time trying to help her to find out a proper model that would fit PNG data in terms of Human Development Index, I decided that we should kind of progress it into a research paper. So I asked her if we could do that, and she agreed. So here is the outcome, and the student is Michaeline Yagro. So basically, Human Development Index measures the growth of a country in terms of its education, income, and health indexes. Basically, it's a measure of the human well-being. So every year, if you normally follow the United Nations Development Program reports that is published based on Human Development Index, you would see how they categorize every country in terms of their development. And so for PNG, yes. So for PNG, when I read through the Papua New Guinea Development Strategic Plan for 2010 to 2030, and also the PNG recent 2050 document, I found out that there is a problem with the current model that the government is using in terms of modeling the growth of human development in the country. And so you could see on the whiteboard there, the current model that the country is using is this one. It only is centered around production plus imports, and outputs are only based on intermediate inputs, consumption plus government consumption, as well as investment and exports. This excludes education, it's a impact for a country to develop, and also the health for a country to develop. So I see that there is a need there to propose for a good model that the government should use, so we could accurately follow through the government policies. It needs to be modified so that we can help to see that yes, the pillars outlined in the recent 2050 document for the country is going to be achieved if we are at the year 2050. So this is the problem basically, and so I propose for this model, which is called Index Optimization Linear Programming Model. And I see that it is a better model that it will showcase really where we are in terms of development, in terms of education, in terms of income, and in terms of health every year. So seriously, we could make amendments to the government policies. A government planner or the government planner should do that, so we could see increment in each of those factors. So we can achieve the goal that was set by the Grand Sir Michael Tumare in the PNG Vision 2050, that it aims to be, PNG aims to be in the top 50 very high developing countries by 2050. So to get there, it all points down to Human Development Index. So this is basically a background of the whole study. And as mentioned already, there is a problem with this current model that the government is using. So I propose this model such that we hope to, I'm not sure, but mathematically speaking, we hope that by 2050, we should achieve a Human Development Index that is between 0.7 to 0.9. And thereby, we need the country in terms of development right up to the top 50 very high developed country group. Yes, so I use this optimization model through linear programming, and it gave a nice output. The output is this 0.872, which by 2050 get there. So the main method involved is data envelopment analysis. It is a theory, and so I love to take theory and analyze it to solve our real world problems. So I take this method out, and I see that it is a very powerful mathematical programming method that can measure relative performance of a country. And it can guide the country as to where we are going, and more importantly, to keep the progress of the development of our country. So on the note, I found out that in the PNG DSP, PNG Development Strategic Plan, they mentioned that between 2010 and 2020, the country should grow by 4.5% every year. But I found a problem with that. That is not so. If you look at this table, these figures or this data was taken out from the United Nations Development Plan report, the latest one, which is 2020. So you can see between 2010 and 2019, we have not made so much progress. In terms of education, education factor of the HCI is computed from these two, the expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. So if you see here from 2010, we were at 9.10 in 2010, and then in 2019, we were at 10.2, 9.8 to 10.2 is a big jump. Then also, in terms of mid-years of schooling, we're just increasing between 2010 to 2019. You can see that we are increasing by 0.1 or maybe 0.2. So from this data, specifically the 2019 data, that to compute the Human Development Index of the country, and currently we are at this 0.555, and we are categorized as a medium human development country. And this graph represents the progress of how we are growing, we are developing in terms of these factors here. Life expectancy is better represented health index. Expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling represents the education indicator. GNI per capita represents the income our country generates every year, gross national income. Right. So that leads me to this data table here, and I incorporate the theory, data and development analysis, in my research. Here you see the predicted HDI values based on the data from 1990 to 2019, predicted HDI values from 2020 to 2050, all the way to this, and the HDI values are computed here. And on this column, you see what is known as DA score. These values are what is derived from my proposed optimization model that I believe the countries will use. Right, so the main model is this. The main model comes from this equation. You can also see it here. Each of the terms represent education index, the second one, health index, the first, the income index, health. And all this, the W represents certain weights. It is bounded between a value that's 0 and 1. So when I compare this against our neighboring countries, it's categorized as very high human development countries, that is Hong Kong, Australia, and Singapore. You can see the HDI here, and the DEA score, which is 1 for the 3 countries. That one says that they are efficient countries. And so, in order for us to get such a value, we would use these 3 countries as our benchmark countries. And so I use linear programming and show that through solving such model through an there are so this is done in R, and my objective function, you could see here, I put all the indicating factors, 4.5% current value for our life expectancy index, 0.88% index, and 4,301 currency US dollars, our income per capita. So when this was generated, the values that we should arrive at by 2050 into this matrix. We have 74 is the predicted lifetime expectancy for our community citizen. And 1.52 is the education index, and 12,000 US dollars is the expected amount of money. So when that was generated through the R programming, I got a result which is 0.871616, and when that is rounded, I get 0.87. So in conclusion, yes, I believe that we can get there to a very high human development group in terms of HDR rankings by 2050. The DA analysis, I see that the score is generated to be 0.872, which falls between 0.7 and 0.9. That indicates the expected NG HDR value for the year by 2050. So could achieve countries' 2050 goal to get there to the top. Thank you. And before I sit down, I would like to introduce the next presenter. The next presenter is Mr. Sakaro, and he will be presenting on predicting the spread of COVID-19 in Papua New Guinea using SIR model, incorporating testing and quarantine.
Thank you, Professor. Maybe I'll present this just in 5 minutes. Time. Okay, so that's my topic. Projected there on the board, and the authors are myself and undergraduate student, final year, who took up this topic for his final year project. I sort of tilted the title a little bit. Let me give you a background on this study. This model was first used in India, India last year, 2000, during the lockdown. Okay, so they used this model to predict the spread of in India. Okay. All right, so Prof. Marita was saying what is yes, SIR. So here you are. Those are the abbreviation of susceptible, infected, and recover. So there's a model here you can see. What is susceptible? There's a disease, and all of us could be susceptible. We don't know who is immune, so it could be potential carrier.
And then that population is, those who are infected becomes, sorry, they go into the infected category, and once they are cured, they are either recovered or they die out. Okay. All right. So these are the systems of equations that govern this model. Okay. It's a non-linear differential equation. So there's 3 equations here, and the total population of the whole population is represented by N here. So if you add the susceptible and infected and recovered, they should give the total of the population itself. All right, so from the general SIR, now this brings me to incorporating quarantine and testing. So it's the same model, but here we took out the infected and broke it up into quarantine and unquarantined. Okay, so COVID-19. Those who are tested, they will go into quarantine. Those who are not tested, they are unquarantined, and they can be infected in the population itself. So it's broken up into these two differential equations. And if they recover, they go back to recover, or they may die out. So here we assume that maybe they recover. There's no death. All right, so what's the variables? Okay, so N population, susceptible, there's a population of susceptible, infected, quarantine, infected and quarantine, and then the recovered, and those are the rates. This is a beta, the rate of infection, and then gamma, there's the rate of recovery, and the testing factor. So that this plays a lot, influences the model a lot, the testing factor. So what is the testing factor? It's a fraction or a percentage calculated from the susceptible population that are tested. Okay, so the rate of testing. Let's say we have 100 people here, 10 people goes and gets tested. The rate is 0.1, 1 in 10. So something like that. Put in a layman's terms for you to understand. Okay, so this is the model that I've developed or borrowed, sorry. And where can we get the data to put into this model? So this is live data on our world in data, okay? So it's currently updating data on that site. Okay, John Hoskins in the US, they do that. Okay, so that's a good site that you can go to also to see data for coronavirus or anything around the world, something to do with health. So I filtered out Papua New Guinea here, sort of the trends. Okay, so here is sort of the rate to 1 million. Okay, so comparing it to 1 million people. So at August 11 and August 21st, you can see, oh, sorry. It sort of drops for Papua New Guinea, and then it increases again, okay? Maybe too much socializing and, you know, Papua New Guineans, our culture, we move around too much. Okay, and the issue of not those wanted to get vaccinated. So our rate will be between, the rate of infection would be between 10 and 30. So I choose 20 here, the rate of infection in 1 million people. And this would relate to our population is also about 9 million plus. Next. Okay, this is a site for statistics for Papua New Guinea. And as you can see, those are the data as of the 8th of December, that's 2 days ago. Okay, that's a total of cases so far that have been tested and been recorded there. And we have new cases as well as active, coming down all the way to Delta cases. Okay, so far, people that have been tested here, 249,000. Okay, so that's a total altogether from day one when COVID-19 started till now. Okay, so having those two data sources, okay, I will try to derive the rates, okay, to put into the system of equations. So basically from the previous data that you saw, that's the infected, how much that has been infected. Oh, by the way, that's our population. And this is taken also from a well meter. So again, it's a good site you can check out for data. Okay, so that's the infected, and and we know because they are quarantined, recovered here, and susceptible. Okay, susceptible. If you rearrange the equations, you want to get the susceptible, you minus u plus the infected, and so you get this. Okay, this is the population that is susceptible. And how can we calculate unquarantined? We don't know. So we know the rate of infection here. So we times it. The rate is, it's a value between 1 and 0. So when you times it, you get a population, and you minus it from the quarantine. So this is the amount of, what is it now? Or probably infected in the population, we don't know. So that's almost 1 million. Okay. And then the rate of infection all the way down, the testing factor. Okay, the recovered over the total cases will give you the rate of recovery rate. So that is 0.9, and this one here is the testing factor. It's a very low, you can see 0.004, very low. In terms of percentage, 0.001% of the population is being tested from the 9 million. Okay, so from those vectors that have been derived, put into the system of equation again, and this is a Python code. So it's a programming language similar to R, but this is more advanced a little bit to do with big data. And here, from all those values that have been calculated and then inserted into this function here that does this differentiation. And this is the model that has been produced from those equations. Now, our population is a whole here would be up here, 1. You can see here, about 80% of our population is still susceptible. Those who are quarantined, we cannot see it because it's very small, that's red. And unquarantined, each sort of it drops here and then dies out away here. And the recovered is the green, but you can see there's still the much number of our population is still susceptible to COVID-19. The time is 160 days, so that's almost 6 months from now. We're looking at next year, June, July. Okay, so that's the reality. What is it now? Okay, from the data. Okay, my proposal to the PNG government here. Okay, if they increase the testing factor, maybe test 1% of our population. Increase the quarantine to maybe 100. So from what they tested, increase it to 100,000 people. Maybe you have money and resources in the health. And then the unquarantined, we don't know, maybe it is now 50,000 in the population. And the recovery may be 10,000 from this 100,000. So the recovery rate would be 0.1. Okay, so from these assumptions, put back into the program here, it will produce this. Okay, you can see we increased our recovery, but this is not finished yet. It's not dying out. Still susceptible here after 6 months. It is still there. Infected, quarantine has dropped. and also the infected. Okay, I can go on to produce the next 1 year or 5 years from now using those equations and the model. Okay, so that's it. That's the end of my presentation. Well, the simple way that costs nothing is to nuclear passing. So, and also get vaccinated so we don't spend money trying to reduce COVID-19 in Papua New Guinea. That's all. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Ms. Bagoroy. She'll be presenting on using big data to improve health services delivery in Papua New Guinea. Please make her feel welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Sasoro. Good day, everyone. Those of you here and those ones watching online, good day to you all. So as mentioned by Mr. Sasoro, my topic for today's presentation is using big data to improve health service delivery in PNG. What I will be presenting on is just based on a working in progress paper. So I will continue on this. Yes, so the purpose for this presentation is to first of all identify from current literature the challenges in delivering health service in PNG, and to briefly discuss the use of big data to improve the delivery of health services in PNG. These are just my research questions, just 3 base research questions, just to guide me to find out what I will need for my in doing research for this particular topic. So moving on to major challenges in delivering health services in PNG. What you can see on this slide are a list of major challenges that are in PNG in terms of delivering health services. Okay. Delivering health services to the rural majority and especially to the urban disadvantaged. Okay. And interestingly, some of those challenges were discussed in my MPA classes, my postgraduate classes, where those students come from the public sector, get to actually share their experiences in terms of, factors that prevent or challenges that they face in actually delivering services to the general public or citizens of Papua New Guinea. And one that really interests me is the fragmentation of relationships between the different levels of government, where you have the national level, the provincial level, down to the local level, and also, well, based on my research, to hospitals, clinics, where you have urban clinics, rural clinics. And when we have those separation there is, well, there is no proper communication between those different parties, and real data is not shared in real time. And when we talk about data, I'm referring to medical data, and medical data can come from various sources, and it can be electronic sources, or it can be at the printed sources, physical sources. Now, there are challenges that are being identified by the government, also by WHO, and the government has invested a lot into projects into healthcare in PNG, but still delivering healthcare or health services to the general public is, yeah, it's improving, but at a very low pace. Okay. So one big problem that I have identified, apart from all those challenges identified from doing research, one is there is no more like a centralized system that captures these massive amounts of medical data or health data. Okay. Some medical data can be captured or generated easily and can be analyzed and interpreted easily, but some data cannot be analyzed and interpreted easily. And one clear example of that is, for example, if you go and do an X-ray scan, that data will be captured as an image, which cannot be easily analyzed and interpreted. It has to be done by a medical officer, okay? So that kind of data is considered as a non-structured piece of data. So having this one big problem in place, I know Professor Kolasemos will disagree with having this, but this is one possible solution of having big data. Now, when we talk about big data actually refers to large, massive amounts of data of various types, okay? And here I'm referring to health data, and that could come from patient records, hospital records, can come from devices that are connected to internet, for example, Fitbit. And I think the next presenter will actually present on wearable devices. I will not go into that. It's just to, state health data can be captured from various sources. So big data, the possible solution to, not extracting data from complex, large data sets, okay, to be analyzed and interpreted for stakeholders to make informative decisions in terms of delivering health services to the public. So a possible solution would be the use of big data. Now, why big data? Big data refers to a technology that includes, you can say, smart tools, intelligent techniques that can be able to generate, extract, that's very important, extract those, the massive amounts of different data, okay, different data coming from the data sets. And those data, when analyzed, can be interpreted and reports can be generated. And the data can be shared with all stakeholders. So just to briefly discuss the use of big data. So three main things that big data will do: capture medical data, extract medical data, and data can be in the form of, I did mention this, three types, can be structured. Now, if we, for example, if we take patient records where data about patients are just been entered into a system, that can be captured as structured data because it can be easily analyzed and interpreted. But if you look at image data or video, okay, data, they are can be categorized as unstructured data, and it cannot be easily analyzed or interpreted. So with this, generate this data, analyze the data, and interpret the data. So because this is working in progress, so my future research plan or proposal for next year would be to refine my research plan and to collect data so that I have this evidence-based data to substantiate my findings and propose a technology to be used in order to improve healthcare or health services in PNG. Just to summarize, so with the current system, yes, we do have current systems in PNG, but health systems I'm referring to, but with the current systems, they cannot extract those, especially complex and large data. So that's why big data is the way forward to actually extract, process, analyze, and interpreted. Thank you. Yes. Thank you all. I would like to introduce the next speaker. That's Mr. Rodney Gunik, who will be presenting on factors influencing the adaptation of wearable devices in healthcare in developing countries. Please make him feel welcome.
Hello, everyone. I would like to acknowledge the presence of some important people in this room. Our keynote speaker, Professor Maretta Semos, our chaplain, Father Vincent, our dean, Associate Professor Dr. Martin Daniel, the CLT team, those who are joining us online from POM and wherever. Also, HODs, our HODs and the staff who are here today. Factors influencing the adoption of wearable device in healthcare in developing country is a subsection of the paper or the presentation or the topic I presented in 2019. Today, I'm doing a systematic literature review. I'll begin with a research framework. The purpose of beginning this presentation with a research framework is to motivate my colleagues, especially the very young ones, to engage in whatever way they can. So what is a research framework? It's a theoretical tool that structures and codify knowledge in a research area. It is also it also decomposes a research area into subdomains and representing each of the domain with theoretical models. Now, why do we need a research framework? Because it demonstrates some understanding of the concept and the theory in the area. It also broadens the area in which the research is conducted. It connects the researchers to the existing knowledge, and it also uses as a basis to come up with hypotheses, and it helps you to decide which research methodology to use. This is mainly what I'll be sharing in this presentation. So while conducting the research, I came across a number of models in the literature. One of the first one is technology adaptation model. It was proposed by Davis in 1989. It has two factors. Now this model was proposed to be used to evaluate technology adaptation in organizations. I also came across the Hedonic motivation system adaptation model proposed by Lowry et al. 2013 as 5 factors. This model is used to measure technologies that provide pleasure to the users. When you talk about video games, online shopping or e-commerce, this is the model that is used to analyze the adaptation behaviors. The unified theory of acceptance and use of technology proposed by Wenkates et al. 2003 with 4 factors. I also came across the lettering technique, Reynolds and Gatman, 1988, which is an interview technique, means and analysis, Newell and Simon, 1961. Okay, this is also an interview technique. The unified theory of acceptance and use of technology as a second lesson by Wenkat test et al. It was proposed in 2012. It has 7 factors. Now, this second version has 3 additional factors to it. You have the hedonic motivation, price value, and habit. The first 4 are from the version 1 of the model. Now, these models can be modified. Benjamin and Ock 2020. You can see this in the book of abstract. They have modified version 2 of the AUT model by adding two more factors, mainly the government health policy and trust to measure the adaptation of health wearable technology in healthcare. I also came across systematic literature review of Kali 2015, which is an 8-step process. That's the process that I used to collect the data or conduct this study. So the 8-step process: first, identify the purpose of the literature, draft protocols and train the team, apply practical screening, extract data, appraise the quality, synthesize the study, and writing the review. Based on this first step, this is the criteria that I have developed to conduct the study. The purpose of this SLR is to construct relevant theories, align those theories to the hypothesis. It's protocol and training. The search was done based on the following keywords: IoT device, wearable device, IoT device or wearable device, and adaptation, and healthcare, and developing countries, or low middle income countries. So these are the words that I was looking for in the title, keyword, and the abstracts of the article that I was searching for. So these articles should be published between 2011 and 2021. The main search engine I used to conduct search for the article is Google Scholar. So practical screening, 33 articles were found from the search, 28 were excluded because the context was mainly in the developed nation. I used backward and forward tracking of citations, which resulted in 89 papers. Quality appraisal, 10 papers were qualified. This is inclusive of the first 5 from the set. Synthesis of the study is to map the theories to the hypothesis, and a review is written based on a concept matrix, which I'll show you in a few minutes. These are the hypotheses that were developed. There are about 9 hypotheses. The first one is to measure if simplicity and effectiveness of the technology will influence the adaptation. Okay, again, this hypothesis are based on the factors from the UT version 2 model. So H2 to measure if the least amount of effort required to use the device will influence the adaptation. Hypothesis 3, positive social influence will prompt the use. Hypothesis 4, negative social influence will affect the adaptation of the technology. Hypothesis 5, if available technical expertise in a country can influence the adaptation. And hypothesis 6, availability of infrastructure. Hypothesis 7, again, if a belief of getting some reward or pleasure from using the device will influence, cost will also affect the influence, and prior experience of visiting any technology. So these are the 9 hypotheses. I used Excel to form those theories and map them. Real. Wait. Okay, so I'll just give you an overview of I call it data collection dashboard for the process. We have the authors, about 10 articles compiled, the name of the author, title, the theory being derived, publication, where the articles are published, quality of the article. Now you see the first one, the quality is undecided because there's no citations for this article. That's the same author. That's the same author, the fourth article. The quality is undecided. There's no citation. But I decided to include this in the review because the author, Basoli et al., has conducted a number of research, published a lot of articles in the same area, so I decided to include them. Just a clarification. So if you look to the right, the last is the linking of the hypothesis. Now, this information on the right is used to form a concept matrix. Now, the concept matrix is the table that is used to write up the review. Now, looking at the concept matrix, you see the performance expectancy is consistent across all the 10 papers being reviewed, more than 50%, and EBIT around 50%. The other factors are less than 50%. So I'll discuss this in the result. Okay, so performance expectancy, facilitating condition, and EBIT are factors that will more likely to influence adaptation, especially in developing countries. This is according to this study. So the assumption made was that if this is true for developing countries, it's also true for PNG. Effort expectancy, social influence, hedonic motivation, price value are less likely to affect adaptation. The possible reason is that most of the articles that I use are reviews. There are no actual research conducted. So there was no empirical work found in the area. So in addition, effort expectancy, SI, HM, and PV are factors that will be affected if there is an actual use of the technology. So limitations, systematic literature review requires collaboration of multiple authors to achieve a credible work. Single author may create a flaw in the research when it comes to developing the theories. The research stream is also shallow, specifically in developing countries, so SLR is not suitable. Research required, further research. PNG, we need to conduct research in 4 categories. From the patient point of view, healthcare workers, caregivers, and the health authority. Further research interest for PNG, artificial intelligence, for autonomous processing of patient vitals, that's done locally. Nano sensors to address social segregation. Now, if you carry around wearables, people will think that, okay, this person has a chronic disease, so let's distance ourselves away from him. So nanotech will hide those sensors so that nobody will know. Blockchain to secure patient data. It is also the feature of cybersecurity. So that's the end.
Okay, thank you, mathematics and technology sector. Now we'll go back to tourism industry. We have our presentations from the tourism part B, or the group B. Okay, the presenters will be Ms. Alcinda Trawen She's the Deputy Manager, Research and International Relations. She'll be presenting via Zoom, and we'll have another presentation again from Dr. Fiona Androa. I'd like to ask the presenters to come up to the stage, and while we prepare the slide for our online guests to make a presentation.
Right, excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. Salutations, everyone, particularly to Dean, Dr. Daniel, and also to the academics, head of departments of the Business, Tourism, and Informatics department, particularly to Dr. Daniels for giving me the opportunity to present quite quickly the research findings from this crisis management insights from the Tourism Promotion Authority, the lessons for COVID-19. So in the next 10 minutes, what I want to be able to do is provide a quick insight into some management insights, particularly of the crisis management from COVID-19 from the perspective of the National Tourism Authority for Tourism, which is the TPA, PNG Tourism Promotion Authority. So for obvious reasons, tourism can show quite considerable capacity to rebound in a crisis situation. And the short-term impacts from a tourism or from a crisis in general have significant impacts for our sector, and particularly we've seen this with COVID-19 being the proofing case, with the tourism industry hit quite significantly, if not, the worst crisis in sort of tourism's history as a sector. And so, as a sector, we are quite vested in trying to secure this safe environment, not only for tourists, but also for the livelihoods that depend on tourism. So we're also interested in mitigating the impacts of crisis. And so this perceived level of safety, particularly in a destination, is quite important also for tourists when they make decisions in trying to visit a place post-crisis. And so a country's response to crisis and its management of crisis, and for this case with the tourism lens, we need to ensure that this recovery and this management of the crisis is speedy, but it's also sort of efficient and the ability to recover quickly. And so in Papua New Guinea, we are not adverse to crisis, I say, because of the fact that, one, our reputation as an unsafe destination in some tourism markets precedes us, despite the fact that we have quite strong tourism products. And we are not new to crisis. And I say this because we've gone through political crisis, natural disasters, other health scares as well. And through it all, in terms of the tourism lens, the NTO, which is the National Tourism Organization, TPA, has powered through this all. So they've powered through all the crises that we've had in terms of the tourism lens. However, with COVID coming into play, and we've obviously seen this constant changing scenario of COVID as a crisis, and its rather longer term than we had anticipated impact. And so with that in mind, the Tourism Authority has now looked at the lens of approaching this crisis management in a more strategic and formal approach. And I was quite privileged enough to be able to work alongside them, and this was late last year, early parts of this year, to be able to look at working towards a crisis management strategy for the Tourism Promotion Authority. And they undertook this mostly to identify, manage, and also mitigate the crisis situation and the risk that is faced in the tourism industry by stakeholders. They particularly understood that they needed the sentiments and the feedback from tourism stakeholders to be able to understand what the needs are so that they can be able to better support the industry in this responsible manner. And one of the words coming out from this in post-COVID is the ability to be resilient. And so that is what TPA wanted to do. And so history has shown, and in other publications, that a National Tourism Authority can provide this profound impact on how quickly a destination can successfully get back on its feet. And so as a result, TPA did the crisis/COVID-19 management survey, and it looked at 3 particular areas. One, pre-crisis, so that was before COVID. It looked at the responses during the initial stages of COVID and crisis, and then it looked at questions about post-crisis, and there were also some generic questions as well in there on demographics. And so the survey was opened from the 5th to the 23rd of January this year, and it's an online survey. It was widely circulated through TPA's social media circles as well as emails. In addition to that, while this work was being done concurrently, there was the Tourism Sector Development Plan Validation Workshop, which happened on the 22nd of January early this year. So there was also another opportunity to have this survey also filled by stakeholders. And with this survey, 46% of the respondents were from the public sector, while 54% were from industry. And as you can see in front of you, the majority of the industry participants in this survey were from the accommodation hospitality sector, as well as from the tour operators sector. And the study found that there were 3 main areas: communications, crisis management strategy, and tourism-specific support, which are essential elements for the implementation to support crisis management in the tourism industry for Papua New Guinea. And what I'll do is I'll go quickly these sort of 3 key finding areas. Wow. And so in terms of communications, there were 6 areas, and you'll see them on your screen to the corner. Receiving tourism relevant information. Did stakeholders receive them? Were stakeholders aware of COVID responses, both from a national government perspective as well as a TPA perspective? What did stakeholders think about the role of TPA in a crisis and its response? Were there enough forums and information for stakeholders to be able to help with their needs? And the last area was how stakeholders wanted to receive information about crisis updates. In general, most of the tourism stakeholders actually responded to say that not a lot of them received information from TPA, particularly during the COVID-19, and you'll see this in this figure 3 image in front of you. In addition to that, you'll see also that there was less tourism information received by industry compared to the public sector in the response to COVID-19. And the majority of the stakeholders were aware of the national government COVID-19 information and what the national government was doing, but they weren't aware of what TPA was doing. And so it said that, the major differences, I guess, between industry and public sector in terms of information, there is a bit of a mismatch, and perhaps there is a need for the tourism authority to be able to better support its stakeholders in crisis management. In addition, figure 6, as you'll see, was quite interesting. It showed that the private sector versus the public sector had particular preferences on how they wanted to receive information. The top areas for, I guess, the industry. They wanted to be able to get quick updates via email, via social media, and also newsletters and sort of website updates, but mostly emails and social media, whereas the public sector preferred press releases and also social media, which brings to mind the fact that when you're communicating messages in a crisis, there are certain tools in which certain industry members, I guess, feel that they can receive information much quicker, which obviously needs to come into play in a communication strategy. The second area of key findings was in this area of whether a crisis management strategy was important in certain sort of policy and plan items. And so the question was asked to industry and to some of the public sector, did they have a risk management plan? Did they have a cancellation policy before COVID? And have they now got one post or during COVID? And so, as you can see from the figures in front of you, many industry operators now have a risk management or a crisis management plan, which is quite a positive thing. However, in the next figure 8, you'll see that just over half of the tourism respondents actually do not have a cancellation policy in place. So that means that there is still a lot of room for advocacy, particularly for the TPA to do in terms of advocating to especially small to medium enterprises to be able to better cover themselves in a risk management, crisis management situation. And the third key area is tourism specific support. And so this looked at particularly what recovery efforts that stakeholders felt TPA should focus on, and also what particular human resource areas that stakeholders wanted support on. So the stakeholders felt that TPA's main priority in crisis recovery, and you can see this in figure 9, should be in prioritizing destination communications in recovery efforts. The industry in particular felt that TPA should prioritize training and upskilling in recovery efforts compared to the public sector, who felt that the priority should be in domestic tourism support and health and safety protocols. However, both industry and public sector all agreed that they expected more support and information from TPA than before the pandemic. And I guess a further comparison, and you can see this between the sectors, industry and public, can see that there are a lot of variances. It's also interesting to note that the industry does not feel that travel facilitation is a main priority. Do note that with this particular question, the respondents were limited to choose one priority area, considering TPA's finite resources. And so I guess considering these closed results, it can be said that the main priorities are in the top 4 areas, and that is destination communications, health and safety protocols, training and upskilling, and domestic tourism support. And so just as a quick sum up in terms of recommendations, I guess in light of this study, the following actions were recommended to the TPA to implement to support crisis management in the tourism industry in Papua New Guinea. And this was obviously from this experience of managing or going through COVID-19. This will ultimately lead to sort of this overall destination improvement for the country. And as we try to come out from COVID-19, try to build consumer confidence and maintain, if possible, some of our tourism markets. So that is work on having a communications campaign, provincial linkages, having a crisis management strategy, having a plan in place for communications, and having the right communication tools. And so in summary, I guess, the tourism sector has the potential to support the PNG government in its efforts in COVID recovery, especially long-term recovery. And for the TPA, and they've identified this, a clear action to this is to be able to have a crisis management strategy. And so this research is now inform them to do so, and hopefully next year they will have the crisis management strategy both endorsed and implemented. And with that, thank you very much, everyone. And don't know at this stage if I will introduce the next speaker, which is Dr. Fiona Nendroa.
Through the eyes of an observer, and I usually speak less than 10 minutes. So first of all, tourism. Globally, tourism is the fourth largest economic activity. It contributes 9% to the global GDP and accounts for 1 in 11 jobs worldwide. So tourism does impact the global economy. What is tourism? Tourism is a social, cultural, and economic phenomenon which entails the movement of people to countries or places outside of their normal place of stay for the purpose of pleasure, leisure, or business. With regards to tourism in PNG and how COVID-19 has impacted the industry, tourism decreased by 82% last year, 2020, compared to 2019. Staycations. What is a staycation? So it refers to local travel activities that a tourist or resident partakes in, and usually tourism activity happening within the domain of the local people, either within the domains of their residential area or home country. Also known as proximity tourism or slow tourism. It's slow tourism because you're only traveling within the domain of your country. So why staycation? Staycation can be used as a recovery strategy and emerging opportunity in the new era, because PNG relies heavily on the international market. So we need to come up with a strategy where we can revive our own tourism internally. Staycation also has the capacity to improve community resilience, because staycation is all about promoting local tourism. And that is local tourism either within the urban area or outside, that is the rural areas. So how does staycation build or promote community resilience? Rebuilding tourism on more equitable grounds, that is unpacking issues of representation, equity, diversity, and inclusion in the tourism industry. In other words, giving resource owners, tourism resource owners, which are Papua New Guineans, to fully participate in tourism. Henceforth, equal participation, self-reliance, which leads to social justice, because the impacts, the positive impacts of tourism is felt by the community. Again, why staycations? Because of what's happening now, COVID-19, there are travel restrictions, international borders closing, compulsory quarantine for some people, and a short break is needed from the current chaotic life triggered by COVID-19, which I'm sure all of us are experiencing. People are looking for safe ways to return to some sort of normalcy without added stress. Stress that comes from traveling, especially international travel where immigration and finance is concerned. Local Papua New Guineans taking part in tourism, embracing PNG's diversity. This is a very important point, because through this, we can understand and embrace other people's culture. We are diverse, remember that, we are diverse. So through staycation, when you travel to another province and taking part in tourism activities there, you get to learn why they do things the way they do things. So in other words, looking at the world through a different ethnic lens. And this leads to embracing national unity because we have a higher level of tolerance once we understand each other's culture and why we do things a certain way. So PNG has the potential for staycation with the different niche markets within tourism that's already happening in our country. Examples, cultural experience, coastal tourism, agro-tourism, the exotic wildlife our country has to offer, nature-based tourism, and well-being tourism, taking a break, recuperating, increasing your health when you are not under pressure from work. However, it is common knowledge that tourism is limited because of the challenges faced by the industry, like any other industry in the country. Law and order, limited tourism knowledge, especially by tourism resource owners, limited infrastructure, and poor accessibility in the sense of road, wharves. And we know that PNG is a high-cost destination because the main mode of transport is air travel. So what is the way forward? Staycation be promoted within the bubble of domestic tourism. Staycation is a form of domestic tourism. And domestic tourism is already happening. When you go for holidays, you visit another family in another province, you're already practicing domestic tourism. Because when you travel, you spend on transport, you go to the market. And that's a form of domestic tourism, visiting friends and relatives. Government, academics, and industry co-creating a fruitful environment for innovation and knowledge-driven research, focus on data-influenced decisions to regenerate tourism and build resilience. Stimulate domestic demand and rethink tourism development. How should we develop tourism so that when something else hits the industry, how can we safeguard ourselves? So staycations as a means of revitalizing tourism in PNG, appreciating the diverse culture that we take for granted, encouraging the local economy by supporting the local businesses, SMEs, and that is both formal and informal. Being more sensitive towards sustainability concerns, because when you travel abroad, you're traveling a longer distance, huh? And that's fuel consumption. Longer distance, more fuel being consumed. And changing the mindset of local residents that you don't have to go abroad. Enjoy what you already have. Enjoy what we take for granted. And that is participating in domestic tourism through staycation. And this brings me to the end of my presentation. Like I said, less than 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Androa, for a wonderful presentation. Now we have questions and comments for our last two presenters. If you have any questions or comment, please, you may make those comments. Thank you.
Disaster risk management officers. I don't know how this particular crisis sits under them, but one thing that comes across strongly is the concept of resilience. And both presenters talked about building resilient communities. So I'm really, really interested in their views about how we can go about building back better and depending on our people to bounce back after a crisis as resilient communities? This is to both of you, yes.
Okay, I'll start. Resilient communities. Our tourism industry is dependent on international markets. And within PNG, the resource owners do not reap the full benefit of tourism because there's always this middle person that brings in the international tourists. So with domestic tourism, they become owners of their own resources and they don't need these middlemen, which sometimes there is, or most times there is economic leakage. So in that way, they become resilient. They own their own resource and they advertise, they promote, and they charge in terms of fees, however way they want. Right now, the industry is being dictated upon by outsiders. So when it comes to resilience, because they rely so much on outsiders, they are not able to continue or operationalize tourism because it's being dictated by someone else, and the operation of tourism is in the power of an outsider.
Oh, yes. Okay, excellent. So just real quickly, and apologies for that. I was going to add that as part of this work, we also had to look at the existing bodies who are in charge of crisis or disaster, and obviously the Disaster Management Office for that. I was going to add a major part of this. And so what was learned from them was that there are existing agencies, and therefore obviously the area of disaster management and that I was going to process. However, the role for the TPA was to be able to then communicate that to industry and the stakeholders. So taking particular elements of processes to be able to then localize to a tourism context, but mostly a tourism communication context, which is where TPA's probably main role is in informing the tourism sector. And so those frameworks from other agencies like the Disaster Management Office was also incorporated as part of the crisis management strategy. And just quickly to add a further point on resilience and taking a different lens of resilience, perhaps compared to Dr. Nandro, is looking at resilience in the point of pivoting. And now with COVID-19, we've seen how resilient our tourism operators are because of the fact that there are no tourists coming in. So then they're pivoting to, say, domestic tourism and like staycations, but also they're pivoting to other areas such as agriculture, doing something not necessarily related to tourism, but being resilient enough to be able to do that while waiting for borders to reopen. And we've seen this in quite a few tourism operators, doing agricultural products or the likes as a placeholder for when tourism reopens.
All right, so that will conclude the tourism and hospitality B, the second sector from tourism and hospitality. Thank you. You may take your seat. Dr. Fiona. Right, moving on to our last sector for the day is as we're all academics, or most of us here are academics, is the teaching and learning sector. So I would like to invite the presenters from that sector to please take your seat on the stage. Please make them feel welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, presenting first in the teaching and learning sector on adventure travel and its impacts on teaching and learning in the Department of Tourism and Hospitality Management. Please make welcome the head of department for the Tourism and Hospitality Management Department, Ms. Teresia Kao.
Hello, everyone. Those watching online and our presenters and audience here. What does the picture bring to you?
Firstly, we talk about adventure. The first thing that people would want to come and see is, where is our icon in Medang? We take them to our Kalibobos and say, here is our beautiful place. So I'll talk about adventure, my reflections as an adventurer and as a teacher myself, and the impacts that it can have on staff and students and learning. Okay, so it's adventure, travels, and its impact on teaching and learning in the Department of Tourism and Hospitality Management. And if I may extend it, I may say, with whoever takes on trips with us, how does it have an impact on those people? Okay, so I'll take it from the introduction and end with a conclusion. So for adventure travel, what do we mean when we talk about adventure travel? That's a type of tourism involving exploration or travel within perceived risk and potentially requiring at least specialist skills and physical exertion. So it further can be defined as a tourism activity, including any of the following. There's any physical activity involved, a cultural exchange or interaction between different groups of people, and engagement with nature. Okay. It does not have to be far. You don't need to go far to look for adventure travel. It can be, you can create your own. Okay, so we can further explain by saying that even planned student field trips in tourism could also take the form of adventure tourism within Medang itself. So this paper, what I'm presenting is based on my personal reflections from involvement with adventure travels in tourism throughout the 6 years from 2016 to 2021 as a tourism lecturer here. I could be biased, you can have your comments, but they are all domestic travels. And there's been involvement with, because all of these travels are involvement with the physical activity, cultural exchange, or we've had interactions with people, even with people as close as Gapsko and Banana Block. Okay, and with nature. So if in 2016, we've had student excursions, but it did not involve any of us going further out. Okay. In 2017, we had a team of TH staff, plus, and the invitation was extended, BS staff, Mr. Joseph Ogi, and team that came on board. So we went to do the opening at Snow Pasiko Lodge, the official opening. And then after that, we had a Bundi flower show. Sounds nice and simple, but how far is it from Medang to Bundi? What conditions are the road? What did we come across when we went? How long did it take? These are the experiences we come back with. And the experiences I take are what builds me. The others that were involved, these were the experiences that them. So, and we went for the Karkar Bilum Festival. And of course, our very own Mobarasha show here at Medang, of which some of you may have been involved. What did we learn from all of this? How could that have been used in the many units that we teach from year 1 to 4? Many of these are applicable. 2020 took the Anga Cultural Show, who has been on the back of 200 boy betel nut bags and taking that trip to Hagen. If you have done it, that's it. That's adventure. Roughing is part of the adventure. The National Youth Show across Raikos District, Sidor, 6 hours over the Australia of the Bay. Take that and see for yourself how rough the sea is crossing over that. Mountain climbing to Mount William, that's my experience solo. I did over the Christmas, so that I could take another team in 2021, and I did. And of course, the Sogeri Pineapple Festival, NCD, with the Koyari local people. What are they doing on the ground? And it was really good to see our own students from here, alumni, taking the lead in organizing that trip, organizing that show, Peggy. And she was the main person behind having a very successful tourism expo out there. Because from what she's learned here, she's been doing that there. So that was impressive. And into 2021, we had a Highlands road trip with a group of interested people. Several places we went. Mount William with the legendary Betty Higgins, and she's taught us so much that those students who were involved came back with. And Kuchip tea, how many of you drink tea here and don't even know what a tea leaf looks like, but you've seen the picture? Never touched one. If you did, good on you. Okay, Ruku's Divine Mercy Shrine for Catholics, religious tourism. It's a national shrine now, but how many of us have been there? Many religious groups may be wanting to take that trip. For the students, it was an eye-opener for them. When they finish from here, they will go organize and take people there. And that's promotion of domestic tourism. And of course, we had to see the city and the lights, Mount Hagen, and came back. Okay, then another group of people, the Mount Hagen Cultural Show, the independence celebrations here in Medang, the Raikos Kangar Festival. 2 weeks ago, I was there. And of course, the many picnics over at Cranket Island. Okay, but this is just some things that were interested lecturers and some students involved, but in the units, in the PhDs that we have and the units that the staff teach, all the staff in one way or the other, they organize different lectures for different units involving students to complement what is taught in the classroom in different semesters each year. Peak Island, many travels there, Wangot Island, PNG ports, NAC Medang, Medang, the town vicinity itself. Many people think they've seen Medang. No, they know Divine Word only. They haven't seen Medang. PNG Maritime College, how many of you have been there? Even if they have been neighbors with us. Who sang Hole in the Wall, Balek Wildlife, Bilbil Village, where the famous clay pots come from, and a visit to many different settlement communities around Medang. Who has been into the heart of Gapsto? You've been living here, tell yourself. Okay, and who's been to Banana Block and on the other side? Okay, these are where we engage students so that they will look at ghetto tourism. They are human beings and people living in organizations there. And we've been involving them. So all our lecturers in TH department have been doing that. So these are all adventures in themselves. Students learn. So now I'm going to show images. I can take a whole hour showing you lots of images, but I cut it short. Okay, that's our first team. Ms. Kimbo wasn't there at that time. Mr. Oge, Mr. Sung, and the team, we went for the official opening to Snow Pacific Lodge. This is where Evan meets Hurt. You can actually see the snow coming down to you. Okay, then the next is the Bunikombo Festival. PNG TPA was there. Everybody else was there. I walked there for a week, but I went the Chimbo way because there was a landslide, the Bundi way. So I had to go around Gambok and over Mundia Pass and back again and come this way. Okay, so these are the challenges that are faced. Thank you. Now, what are the questions that are reflected on? That I reflected on to come up with this. So what's the significance of the field trips to teaching and learning? And what were the challenges that we find? And how can adventure travel through field trips complement teaching and learning? Spelling error, the R is not there. Okay, so the impacts of teaching, if you can think back of yourself, do you remember from school what caused you to be who you are today? Chances are, maybe there was a group project, a special speaker, a field trip that helped you to decide. If it may have been something you did on your own outside of school after learning about a given topic, there was something in your life that sparked your passion or curiosity. So it pushed you to take your learning into your own hands and learn more. And every student comes to the classroom, all of us, we have students with a different world experience. So we know that students who have been exposed to many different things do better in school. In order to be successful readers, they need to relate to what they read, to what they've experienced. And to think broadly, students need to have a variety of experiences. So as teachers, we know that field trips are important, but why specifically? Many reasons. And you can read for yourself. There's real world learning. I will not read through it. Students being to Betty Higgins Lodge, they know what a fish looks like, and especially rainbow trouts that she's the only supplier. How does he hatch the eggs? She took them on an entire trip to teach them all of this. And they came back with so many experiences. So real world learning. Those who went to Peak Island, those who went to Balek, and so on and so forth. So there's real world learning actually happening. Access, they're able to access tools and environments that are not available at school here. And I will show you photos of Sir Peter and his team showing students what to do. And we cannot have access to him all the time. While he's here, we are able to use his facilities. Socioeconomic growth. And some students may not be strong in the classroom, but they may be very practical students out there. And they can become tolerant. They're studying tourism and hospitality, and PNG gives students a chance to think about a topic or theme from different perspectives, because we all come from different places. And our diversity makes it unique. And as we speak, we all come from different places. So you go back and every student would have its own thing to learn. And of course, we establish networks. And when we talk about trainings and others, we've created network and we maintain that in the industry. Okay. And academic impact, importantly. Hands-on learning make concepts more memorable. Just think back of what you learned in school. And as teachers, we take back what we learned and use some of these pictures and experiences to complement what is in the books. And a textbook that must have been written by somebody or that's been uploaded by someone on the internet, and we're using resources, but the experiences in you builds you. So additional field trips are important because they're able to engage with content in a variety of ways. Okay, and they're presented through all different media and different forms of learning. So there are students who see, okay, how do I start a village lodge, homestay, religious tourism? What do I have in the environment? They come back with thinking so many things. So when they return to Divinewood, the trip that they took can serve as a touch point for an entire unit or many other units. So photos, Sir Peter and Tim, these are photos from Miss Gimbo and her trip. And Wesley Anton, who's a senior officer there, keeps talking to them, and others. So photos speak a lot of language to Balek Wildlife, and below is Father Vincent and Tim to the retreat center. For some people, they've never seen the retreat center. And that was like, yeah, it's another beautiful place just over there. And they think they've seen all of Medang. No. And here's the legendary Pius Wingti with tourism. And this is an Arab girl, but who is in Hagen, whatever. She decided to go to Hagen show when I went. Okay, what did she learn when she came back up there? Okay, networks that we create with different people that we go to with. Okay, and of course, NAC, Mount William, Kuchipti, and Divine Mercy Shrine, Rokus, Tachinjawaka, and of course, most students and the trips and Mississippi Canada. Okay, and with Betty. So that's all. So with COVID-19, what are the challenges we've met? COVID-19 and travel restrictions, safety and security, financial difficulties, and logistic arrangements was another thing, but we managed despite. Okay, with that, in conclusion, I would say experiences from adventure travels have positive impacts on tourism knowledge delivery through teaching, and thus enhanced learning and teaching occur through adventure travels. The most important lessons learned through adventure travels is real-world learning, access, socioeconomic growth, and academic impact. And various challenges are encountered, and adventure travel has a positive impact on teaching, learning, and the curriculum experienced by all adventurers involved. Okay, with that, thank you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I'll leave you with this. You enjoy your holiday in the next exotic destination this Christmas. You don't need to look for it. That's Mount William. You can find that place when you go. And with that, I'd like to introduce the next presenter, who is Mr. Kosley Wara. He'll be presenting on challenges in teaching a large class and its impacts in the Department of Business Studies. Mr. Kosley Wara, please make him welcome.
Thank you, MC. Professor Semos, Farah Vincent, Rhonda, Mr. Ari, and your team. Thank you for your time to sit through our symposium. As the MC have said, this is my topic, Basically, it's not from me. I'm just trying to summarize what the department we've been doing semester in, semester out, year over year. Some of the things that we do. As you know, we have big classes in the department, meaning that big number of students, and some of the techniques that we do or we go through, some of the things that we taught to ourselves before we start the semester, so that they help us as we go through the semester. We get to deliver basically what needs to be taught in that particular semester to our students. So when the evaluation comes out, Professor Samos and the QA teams are here. Some of us get excellent, meaning that we got very good evaluations. So after my presentation, I hope that some of staff that who feel scared or who don't teach big classes, please, it's time for us to reconsider and probably take on some challenges. Thank you. This is my outline. I'll go through outline. I said thank you to some staff that assisted the department through the semesters, year in, year out. So we look at the challenges associated with the challenges of teaching large classes, importance of why a lecturer is important, meaning that why you and me are important in a learning environment. So from the business study department perspective, big class is not an issue to us. Our perspective is if we have a quality teacher that can stand in front and deliver, that's the bottom line, that's it. So that's our approach. We look at the challenges, opportunities, or benefits of teaching a big classes, and we summarize it with my references. Now again, it's a desk research, meaning that I reviewed 5 papers to come up with the slide, just to support the perspective of what we are doing in the department, which is emphasis is on the lecturers to stand in front and deliver, not the number of students in the class. To start off my presentation, I would like to thank Dr. Andrew again for the support year in, year out, semester in, semester out to assist us. Now, she knows what we're going through, teaching big class. So if we can survive, she is part of us. Ms. Karai and the IS department, the HOD, Ms. Bagore and your team, thank you for your continuous support to our PS students. Now, these are big classes. Again, the importance of a quality lecturer to deliver or to teach the big class. So thank you again to those 3 for your support over the years as well as over the semesters. So again, it's not clear, but basically my point that I mentioned earlier, regardless of big class, teacher is very, very important. So a teacher is, the picture demonstrates what a teacher is. So I would say that from BS department, this is what all we have. As a lecturers or those within my team, this represents us, as well as Dr. Andrew and those others that not only us, FM department and those other departments, that this is the big class. You must have grit. You must be forgiving. You must trustworthy. So as you teach big class, it takes a lot of time. Now, some colleagues asked us during the tea break or outside when they see us, how do you survive? How are your work, commitment, and extra challenges that you go through in teaching big classes? The response the response that I provide, or my colleague provide to them is, again, is going back to the lecturer. If you are someone that got all those that is on the slide, you can be able to manage as well as survive in teaching those big class of students or students in your class. We know having a big number of students in the class, there's a lot of challenges. As this particular author, the Areva 2017, but I'm not going to, my slide or my presentation is only focused on the good, positive side of teaching a big class, rather than talking about all the negatives of having a big class. We know time consumption, sleepless nights, and all the things that we do when you teach a big class. This is just to emphasize on the importance of having a quality teacher in a class, so that it covers whatever class capacity or student number that you have in a class. According to the SING 2014, teachers are the single most important factor in improving and ensuring the quality of education. Another author, again, as I've said, desktop research, and these are the 5 reviews, authors that I've used. Responsibility for preparing students for the future largely depends on the teacher or lecturer. Students in a large class can learn just as those in small ones. What counts is not the size of the class, but the quality of the teaching and how the teacher or lecturer deliver. According to Dean and Reed 2017, students place more emphasis on the quality of teaching than the class size. So that goes back to my point earlier. It's the importance of quality teacher, someone who know the content or know the unit that will can be able to deliver so that regardless of number, he or she can be able to get the job done, teach the unit through the semester, year in, year out. Teaching a last class is a challenge, as we all know, but it can also offer many opportunities for you to improve your teaching and make it more enjoyable, rewarding for students. In the last class settings, teachers have the opportunity to, this is some of the things that when you teach last class, these are some of the things that you can take out of, or you can improve your teaching as an academic in that particular area when you continue to teach or continue to deliver. Improve organizational and managerial skills as you work to creatively organize your classroom into comfortable, welcoming learning environment and manage the many students within it. Improve interpersonal skills as you try different ways to get to know each student as an individual through your work in class or the life outside of it. Improve your teaching and presentation skills, and improve your evaluation skills through the semester or through the year, and etc. And these are a few that I've picked up. There's more. I think that brings to my end of my presentation. Now, this is just to emphasize that we are an angels, trying to guide those students into promised land. So what we do as academics reflects our students. These are the papers that were used for this particular presentation. Thank you. Before I sit down, our final presenter, please, let's put our hand for our dean. I will present on online unit delivery of flexible learning programs in the Faculty of Business and Informatics. Dr. Daniel, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I will be presenting on the online unit delivery of flexible learning programs in the Faculty of Business and Informatics. And this is basically from my own personal reflection, personal experiences and insights into teaching flexible learning units within the faculty. I believe that those who teach in the flexible learning units face some of the things that I will share today. From the DW learning policy, online learning policy, an online program is a program where the content, 80% of the content, 80 or more % of the content is delivered online, according to the current policy. So just for us to link back to the policy that we have. An online unit, for an online unit, 80+% of the content, and that includes the topics and the assessments and everything that you do in delivering a unit. When you do that online, that's regarded as an online unit, according to the policy that we have in the university. So in terms of the mode of delivery of flexible learning units, usually we have 1 week residential for a unit, and then students go back and they've got 14 weeks, 15 units in a semester. Now, the 1 week residential is where the staff, they meet face-to-face and they deliver their content. And usually now in 1 week, you cannot cover everything. You cannot cover everything in 1 week. That's why you have the 14 weeks. The question is, what do you do within those 14 weeks? What do the staff do and what do the students do? From my past experience in teaching flexible learning units, without the extensive use of Moodle, when students come for residential weeks, we cover the content and try to cover most of the things in that 1 week. But by the time students are gone, we lost contact. We lose contact with the students. And students think that they've covered everything in that 1 week. So those are, again, some of the challenges without the extensive use of Moodle. And I believe some of the staff who teach in the flexible learning units or programs, even not just in this faculty, but probably in other faculties as well, are still having those similar challenges. Where they think that because it's residential, you teach everything in 1 week, and for the next 14 weeks, you forget about the unit. You forget about communicating with the students, engaging the students, and all of that. So I decided to change my approach, and because we know a semester comprises of 15 weeks. So we need to engage the students throughout the semester, whether it's face-to-face with full-time programs or whether it's flexible learning programs when students get back to their workplace or back home after the residential week. So some of our experiences in teaching those units, especially this year, because I've tried to change some of my approach to the teaching. So week 1, face-to-face. Next 14 weeks, mainly online. And I'm using the word mainly online. Okay. Now, the online learning policy provides a sample, a template on how you can structure your unit page on Moodle so that you can prepare it for online delivery. So I just took this from the policy, and that's something that I also try to use in my units, flexible learning units. So I have a welcome page at the top, welcome to whatever MB6 or 8 research methods, and then a brief intro about myself, who I am, okay, who I am before the students arrive. Okay? Because usually students are enrolled into the unit at least 1 week, at least 1 week before they arrive, so that they have access to the Moodle page and navigate, and because some of the students are new to these things. And then I have a section on unit documentation. That's where I provide a unit outline and the unit organization, the prescribed text, the main readings, required readings for the unit, and then a section on assessments. And under that section, I have assessment specifications, criteria, submission links, and all of those things. And with a summary, just a summary table showing the assessments, the weightings, and the learning outcomes addressed by those different assessment tasks. And then a section on the first topic. Okay, first topic with the learning outcomes. Okay, learning outcomes for the topic. Okay, all relevant readings. Okay, readings could be lecture notes, links to internet resources or YouTube videos, but ensuring that they are of high quality, not just any other resources. Okay, but make sure that they are high quality content, relevant for the topic for that particular week. Okay? And any form of assessment, like some formative assessments. So like I said, one of the challenges without the extensive use of Moodle is that when students go back to the workplace, in that 14 weeks, you lose contact with the students, and the students get lost. Where am I now throughout the semester? Okay, they get lost. They forgot about their password, and they start emailing the staff, and then the staff will then contact CLT and ICT, and CLT will agree with that. ICT will agree with that. Okay, those are the challenges in trying to deliver flexible learning units. So for each topic, I have those resources and content and learning outcomes, and then I also try to give weekly quizzes, just to enable or to get the students to engage with the content week by week. Otherwise, they will forget when they are back in the workplace because they caught up with time and work, and that's one of the main reasons they give for not keeping up with the units, the assessments given. So weekly quizzes, like end of topic or end of chapter quizzes, just to engage, get the students to engage with the content, so they are still alive throughout the semester. And section on topic 2 and 3 follow a similar structure to the section on topic 1. Some principles to keep in mind, okay? Keep it simple, okay? Keep it simple. Avoid information overload to the students, okay? Do not try to provide a lot of things on one single page with all these blocks and everything. Sometimes it can be confusing, okay? Sometimes you can achieve big things with simple things, okay? Keeping it simple, avoiding information overload. Okay? avoiding congestions where you try to include a lot of things and decorative items or decorative stuff. Okay, reduce all of that. Make it simple, short, sweet, sharp. And then the most important thing, maintaining consistency of structure, resources, and activities. You maintain consistency, the students will know exactly what to expect the following week. They will expect set of resources, they will expect YouTube videos, they will expect probably another weekly quiz or a Q&A. They will be expecting those things in the following because you are maintaining consistency throughout the semester, the way you organize your unit, whether it's on Moodle and the way you communicate with students. Again, these are from my own personal experiences in trying to deliver an online unit. And some of the things that I used in my different units. Okay? I thought about, I think, four flexible learning units, 5 flexible learning units online this semester, this year. So some of the things that required readings, again, I've already shown you the structure, okay? The unit page, required readings, lecture notes, internet resources, okay? YouTube videos, assignments, weekly quizzes, okay? Those are formative quizzes, assessments, online exam, QAs, discussion forum, news forum. So those are some of the tools available on Moodle that I used in delivering these units. And other features can be considered like blocks, but again, like I said, do not put in a lot of, keep it simple, relevant blocks. So one of the blocks I have is on academic integrity. Probably just a summary table showing the main assessment items and weightings and the learning outcomes that those assessment items address. I also try to use Zoom and Facebook. Some students have challenges, and I will come to challenges briefly, okay? But mainly emails, Moodle, and mobile communications from time to time. Thank you, Taima. Okay. Some of the challenges there, okay? Some of the challenges, and one of the main one is many were new to online learning. It's a paradigm shift from a workplace environment face-to-face that you're used to, that they are used to in their past studies, and getting into an online kind of environment to take units online was a main challenge for them. Apart from those other 3 stated above. So some of the lessons that I learned, okay, planning for online delivery. Planning is crucial. It will take time. But that time invested will have dividends at the end. Developing or locating useful resources that are of high quality, and not just picking up any video from YouTube, but make sure you assess the quality of that resource. Weekly quizzes and QAs, forums to engage with students. And the most important point there, you can reuse most of those resources and activities. In software engineering, there's a phrase that we use: do not reinvent the wheel. Okay. Jerome is nodding his head. Okay. So what I've said so far, we are used to those challenges. We have experienced those challenges, okay? But my point for this presentation is that in school, you learn the lessons, then you take the test. But in life, you take the test, then you learn the lessons. Okay? So go out, design, and deliver a unit. Okay? Take the test first, and then you learn your lessons. Thank you.
All right, moving on, we have Mr. Wilson Go from Port Moresby campus, who did not complete his presentation due to some technical difficulties, I imagine. So, Mr. Wilson Go, can you hear me?
Yes. Loud and clear. All right. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry to hold But anyway, I'm going to go through the slides again, just the highlights of the slides that I prepared for this presentation. As I cited earlier, of the 4 products made in PNG, only one actually engages smallholder engagement or smallholder source of raw materials. Besta 100% reliant on imported raw materials. Oxen palm 90% imported raw materials, and in transition would be Trukai, because we have no figures on the Hamamas brand that they claim to be sourced from the contract growers in Morobe, primarily. But as a success story is New Britain palm oil, because it's proven that they source their raw materials 100% from the small holders. Now, just to highlight this chart, how to empower smallholder into productivity. Sorry. We encourage us to operate in accordance to the SME policy 2016, and that is one province, one crop movement. And that would achieve a real productivity that would empower smallholders, that would make them source of materials for the export market as well as for the local industry. And that would increase our household income. And of course, eventually will lead to economic growth, MSME, and standard of living improvement. Just to reiterate again, the economic tripartite partnership from the traditional partners between the government and the industry, we have to include the smallholders as the third party. Now, just to highlight the relationship between the agriculture, smallholders, and industry, we have to respect and observe the interdependence of these two parties, because the output of one is the input of the other, and vice versa. Going on, the negative consequences if we keep importing raw materials, of course, expensive PNG-made products and cheaper imports, denial of participation by smallholders, and low productivity. And by paying our imported raw materials in US dollars or reserve in the country for the US dollars. Now, recommendation to connect the dots, government policy must formulate to formalize the tripartite partnership, restrict or regulate importation of raw materials, and adopt one province, one crop policy. Probably, again, I would encourage the government to consider establishment of state enterprises to achieve the downstream processing and import substitution in the country. Finally, to conclude, we have a catalyst project in Medang, and it's called the Pacific Marine Industrial Zone. I would like to quote an article from written by Father Pat Guest and Mr. Patrick Matbob, entitled "The Pimis and the Village: Strategies to Convert the Resource Boom into Development." And I quote, "The big question in many parts of PNG is, how does a village negotiate with multinational corporations and massive exploitation of their resources?" And to quote further from one of the clan leader in the affected area, which is by the name of Frank Don, "There is a big animal out there. Nugut Yumi go close to Longbanis na imbay Kilim Yumi." The inclusion of the affected communities of the PIMIS project into a tripartite partnership is an economic, moral, and social responsibility of the government and the industry partners, and is a win-win solution to tame the animal for the mutual benefit of all parties to the project, of course, with open and close quotations. Smallholders, finally, smallholders, when engaged into the market chain, are spectators no more, but become active participants in the harvest of their natural resources. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to all.
As we wait for Gabriel to open up how the journal looks like, this is volume 4 of the Electronic Journal of Informatics. So it's not an FBI journal. Okay, the name is Electronic Journal of Informatics, and not FBI journal. That means anyone can contribute to this journal. Anyone from within the university, anyone from outside the university. And in this volume 4 of the journal, we have a number of papers on mathematics, on technology, on tourism, both from within the university and from outside the university as well. So it's open to anyone, okay? Both academics and non-academics who would like to contribute and share knowledge and share ideas and insights and experiences so that we can all, we are all informed of what is happening, not just within our area of expertise, but in other areas as well. So we have a broader understanding of how things fit together. So the cover looks something like that. The cover looks something like that. So volume 4 on the right, you can see. So volume 4, December 2021. Now this will be published on the faculty website. It will be published on the faculty website, and the link will be posted on the broadcast. So I'll just scroll through so you can see how it looks like. Okay, so quite a number of papers there. Okay. Again, I think 2 from India, from Professor Misra, 1 from Australia, a friend of late Professor Anderson, Rick King, 1 from Alcinda, and a few others from the staff within the faculty. So because we are trying to promote a STEM, okay, it's not just business and there's of course the important areas, but we're also trying to promote a STEM within what we are doing: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So again, those who are interested in publishing scientific articles that we can accept probably from other faculties can contribute to this journal. So it's open to all, and not just FBI. It's not an FBI journal, it belongs to everyone. So it provides a venue where we can all share information. We can also share information based on our original research or reviews of literature or our own experiences, insights, reflections on teaching and learning, so that we can all learn from one another. So that's our volume 4 of the electronic journal. Okay, we have 3 editors here who have reviewed those papers. So those papers have gone through rigorous review. Because we want to maintain standard, not just in terms of the content, but also the structure and the formatting and APA referencing and all of those things. So we've got 3 main reviewers there: myself, Vanessa, and Cyril. So we've reviewed those papers quite extensively. Okay? The feedbacks were given to the authors to update, to refine, and to submit. And final review done by by myself as the coordinator of the journal to ensure everything is all in order before we publish. Because when we publish, it goes out to public domain, everyone is reading, those who have access to the journal. So that's the Electronic Journal of Informatics, Volume 4, 2021. So we have been at least trying to do well. Okay, our aim is to publish 2 volumes in a year. Unfortunately, we were not able to do that this year because in June we did not receive enough papers. The minimum number of papers is 5. We need at least 5 articles to publish a volume as per our policy. So we were not able to get 5 in June, so we've only published 1, okay, volume 4, okay, 1 volume this year, with I think about 9 or 10 articles. So I would like to thank those who have contributed to this journal. The journal is open to everyone, so I encourage all the staff in the faculty that the journal belongs to everyone. Okay? Everyone. It does not belong to the Dean of FBI. I'll be leaving soon. It belongs to everyone. So we all need to contribute towards this journal. So I encourage all the staff in the faculty to take that lead, in contributing towards the journal, so that we can also expect the others, okay, others from outside the faculty to contribute to the journal. So that's just a word of encouragement to all of us, so that we can have more articles from 2022 going forward. Okay, so that basically launched volume 4 of the Electronic Journal of Informatics. Now moving on to the closing remarks. Okay, closing remarks for the day. First of all, I would like to thank, well, the president is not here, okay, but I would like to thank the president, who's quite a busy man, okay, but for doing the opening remarks this morning, and Professor Maretta for accepting our invitation, and she basically summed up everything that I wanted to hear and what I was expecting for all of us, not just me, but for all of us. So she has summed up everything that we need to know and provide a next platform for us to going forward from 2022 and onward. So thank you, Professor Maretta, for the wonderful speech. Let's give thank you, Piki and the team, okay, Ryan, for helping us with Zoom and Facebook and all of this. So thank you for your assistance. I give them a hand. We also thank DW Finance for supporting us with the refreshments. Despite the financial difficulties, they are always there. And thanks to all the presenters, okay, because you had something to present, we were able to host this symposium. Otherwise, this symposium will not be successful. Because you have something to share, we are here to learn from you. And a probably special one to those two presenting via Zoom, Mr. Go and Alcinda. Thank you to the FBI EO for assisting in organizing the symposium, the setup, and ICT and CLT and those and Ms. Cow for the flowers, okay, and for setting the stage to have this symposium. We have the book of abstracts for the symposium, and we will circulate the final draft to everyone. We will also provide a link. It will be uploaded on the faculty website, so we'll provide a link on the broadcast, so everyone you can download, and those who are not here can download and go through the abstracts. So we will upload that next week, early next week. Some of us are still working next week. So we'll upload that. We are also planning to prepare proceedings from the symposium. So the proceedings from the symposium will comprise of the PowerPoint presentations from the presenters. So we will make those available, including, and I got permission from Professor Maretta so that we can also include her speech, a wonderful speech, into the proceedings, because
that captured everything and sort of fitted everything together so that we can go back and read through the speech and pick up on some of the important things that she mentioned this morning. That is useful for all of us going forward. So we will prepare proceedings from the symposium, and we will share with everyone. Upload that onto the faculty website and share that with everyone. So once again, thank you for those who have joined us today to support in what we are trying to achieve and develop this, promote research scholarly culture in the faculty and the university as well. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice weekend and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and stay out of trouble.